Hey, good afternoon. How are you? No, I don't have Pat Campbell with me today. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you a few things here before we get started. I'm just going to get down to business right away here. First thing is this. If you are clicking on this video to figure out why you suck with women, I'm going to tell you why today, okay? It's because we're just going to go cut right to the chase. 3 different things, and this is not a list. There's 3 very specific things. The reason that most guys suck with women, and that is instinct, emotion, and reason. And that's what we're going to get into in today's show. Usually it's just because you don't understand those things, and today I'm going to try to help you out so that you do understand those things. So stick around.
Bring the ship up to broadcast depth. We're going in.
Welcome to the Rational Male. I don't even know what episode this is. I'm not even going to try. Today, we're going to be talking about instinct, emotion, and reason.
All right, then.
There you go. See? I give it to you right at the very beginning of the show. From now on, we're going to go right straight to the point. If you want to hear me ramble on, you can wait till the end because nobody sticks around after 30 minutes of this. So how you guys doing today? This is a live stream. So there you go. And no, in fact, it's not looks. It's not game. It's not status. It's not money. It's because you don't understand 3 things. And just sort of dawned on me the other day. I have a series of posts that are called actually Instinct, Emotion, and Reason. I wrote these. When did I write these? I have the first one. If you want to find out what today's, if you want sort of the today's syllabus for today's class, you can find the links to all 4 of the essays that I'm going to reference today. I wrote these, April 11th, 2018. Man, has it been that long? 2 years. 2 years ago, I wrote these. So, and this is a series. I have, the reason I'm covering this today is because I thought it was kind of a basic kind of thing. And I've been having some other thoughts about it today. Play my guitar live. Would you like me to? I could actually. I have the Scarlett Solo already plugged in here. I've been messing around. You know, let me explain a couple of things to you. I have a new, what is it? Was it Positive Grid finally sent me my Spark amp, which is this little practice amp kind of thing. It's actually, I bitched and complained quite a bit because I ordered it back on November 5th and I just received it 2 days ago. And it was worth the wait. Okay, it's pretty cool so far. So, but as a result, just sort of as a make good, they also threw in for the people who've been waiting a very long time, because these were for pre-orders that I ordered. Like this was before Christmas, right? And I was waiting for this thing for a lot of people are waiting for theirs. So some people are waiting longer than mine. But I probably because of the COVID thing and everything, you know, shipping has been a real pain in the ass lately. And I get it, but it was worth the wait. It won best amp or whatever technology, I guess, at the NAMM show back in National Association of Musicians Merchants. I think it was in January was when they have that. And it looked pretty good, but man, people are really, really frustrated. But I got it, and as a result, because people were waiting, I also got a free copy, a free working copy, full full copy of Positive Grid. What is it called? It's called Bias Effects 2, and I have that. I could plug in. Maybe I will sometimes. I don't know if I want to do it on a live stream. Maybe I'll do. If you want to see me play, you can go and look at the show that I did about soulmates. Yeah, there's a few little clips in there if you're really that curious. I do music. If you heard the bumper music, I've got a couple of different clips here. You'll hear some of that stuff too. And yes, so there you go. Now I've answered your question. All you ever wanted to know about my musical talents. So anyways, but that's not what today's show is about: instinct, emotion, and reason. And let me explain why I chose this as today's topic. The first thing is I have been considering this series to include in my 4th book. And as I was saying, I think I mentioned this last week, is the 4th book is about religion, but the very first third of the book, I have to kind of cover red pill topics so that new readers can understand, at least have some basic understanding of what it is that I'm talking about, because I can't expect the audience that I'm aiming this book at to be in the manosphere or to understand what I mean by hypergamy or soulmate myth, or all the stuff that I have been talking about really for almost 20 years now. And certainly I can't expect everybody to have read all 3 of the other books prior. So this book, I am aiming at a religious audience, but not solely. Obviously, you guys are going to read it. Pretty much everybody who has been my audience that I've my readership, I guess, that I've built up over the last 7 years now. Obviously you guys are beating down my door trying to get to this thing. But here's the thing I have learned as being an author. And I didn't set out to be an author. I only sort of remember I published The Rational Male, the first book, in 2013. So it's in October 1st, 2013 is when it went on sale on Amazon. And in that time, it has really it has exceeded any intent I had for it being a book at the time. If you haven't read my book, here it is, right? Or where's it? Right there. Go pick it up, go read it. But you will not find what I'm going to talk about today. Which is instinct, emotion, and reason. Like I said, I wrote the series that I'm going to talk about today is I wrote back in what did I say, April 2018. So we're looking about 2 years ago is when I came up with this, and this was a series of posts. This was 4 different posts, and as I was saying, I'm considering it for inclusion in the first part of book 4 because I think it's pretty rudimentary. It's very important to know what I'm about to get into. I think this really serves as a basis, and it took me a while to really come into understanding this because the one thing about the red pill that you guys will find, and I hate to even call it the red pill, I'm trying to sort of refer to the red pill as intersexual dynamics, or a more realistic understanding of red pill intersexual dynamics. That's what I mean. The red pill has turned into something that it was never intended to be. The red pill, as I refer to it, and then a lot of my colleagues, and you know who they are, refer to it. We tend to just refer to it in terms of intersexual dynamics. Well, how do men and women relate to each other, and not just how do we get laid, but how do we relate as different genders, different sexes, whatever the hell you want to call it. How do we, in our new order understanding of sociology, archaeology, I guess too. Anthropology was the word I was looking for. Sociology, psychology, evo-psych, evo-bio. Think of all the different sub fields that we have to sort of delve into so that we can understand stuff like this. And people say, well, I don't even want to worry about it. I'm just going to go and she wants to come along for a ride. That's fine. Okay, fine. If it's good enough for you to just turn the ignition on and the car runs, or you flip press the remote and the TV comes on, that's fine. You can, if it's working for you. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like to know what's going on, and I think a lot of you guys do too. So when I'm writing a book, my challenge, as you might guess, my challenge is knowing what not to put in the book. I think a lot of people get, I think a lot of people, when they decide that they want to be a self-published author, and it's real easy to do that now, I think they sort of tear their hair out or stress on the amount of content that they're going to put into it. I've seen a lot of guys who will throw rocks at me. These are, who, this is the usual suspects. And they've got, quote unquote, a book, and the book amounts to about 97 pages. And to me, and that's in 12 point, 13 point type with, triple spaced lines and, line spacing and everything. And so when I read stuff like that, to me, that's a pamphlet. That's not a book. To me, it seems like if it's that short, you're probably struggling for content. And I'm not saying that, well, more is not always better. If you read Preventive Medicine, that book tops out at, I think, 267 pages, which is a light book for me. But I only wanted to put that out because I was trying to explain the timeline, because I was trying to get it out there so people would know, what they can expect from women at different phases of maturity. So that had a purpose and a point. If you read Preventive Medicine is 49 pages. That's close to about 350 pages. Religion is going to be a big freaking book. Sorry, Sam, you're going to be reading this book for a long time. And so my challenge really, and this is not like a flex on these guys, but it's my challenge has always been what to leave out of it. So if you remember me talking about the first book, my point was, then people complain about the points, like the font size, or like, boy, you cram everything in here, and boy, this is like Rich Cooper says, reading The Rational Male is like drinking from a fire hose, information wise, and it is. And I did that unintentionally because I thought that was going to be the only book I would ever write. I thought, okay, I'm going to just go collect all these blog posts. I'm going to rewrite them so that they will fit into a book format, so that they have some kind of flow. I tried to compile them so they're in some kind of understandable order. And lo and behold, it ended up becoming the Red Pill Bible. It became the book that I think people wanted to read. When I was writing the posts for it, and then that later turned into the chapters in that book, I was reading the game by Neil Strauss, and I really, really wanted it to be that book, right? I'm like, oh, finally, I can have a book so I can refer to it, and it just wasn't the book that I wanted to read. I mean, it was cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I liked the game, but it was an entertaining book. It wasn't an informational book. And that's why I wrote The Rational Male. And so my point is this, is like while I'm writing this book, and one of the reasons why this is taking a very long time for me is because I got to know what to leave out. And I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether I'm going to put instinct, emotion, and reason into the book. So maybe you guys can help me figure out whether or not I should do that. KG, do you know Jack Black? Would you say women find a violinist attractive? If you're a concert violinist, yes. Women find musicians attractive. Why is that? That's probably should be a show. Actually, you know what? We're going to talk about kind of peripherally today. We'll talk about why women find musicians and artists attractive. There's an evolutionary reason for that. It's an attraction or a selection for creative intelligence in a mate. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. What else are you guys doing here? I will. Let me explain a few things here before I get started. Here's how I work super chats. I apologize in advance if I don't get to your super chat. I have Sam Bada, the voice of The Rational Male, is in he's moderating the chat right now, at least on YouTube. And if you want to get a super chat in, that's fine. If it is off topic, I save those till the last 20 to 30 minutes of the show. If they are on topic and I see them immediately, I will probably put them on screen and I'll address them right away. But that's just how I have to work it. Because I think a lot of people, when I do a live stream, they think, oh, good, here's my chance to learn how to get my girlfriend back. That's not what the point of this is. I'll be happy to answer that. I also do counseling too. So if you are, and I call it counseling, I don't do coaching. I am not a registered APA ordained psychologist. So that's another thing I wanted to also say here really quickly before I get into instinct, emotion, and reason. I am not an endocrinologist. I don't study hormones. I don't know how dopamine actually works. I understand the function of dopamine. Actually, I shouldn't even call it dopamine because people corrected me on this. They said it's not dopamine. Dopamine is a precursor to the good endorphins that come from pleasurable experiences that, of course, reinforce the behavior or the thought pattern or whatever else it is that nature intended for you to reproduce, and that could be like eating, that can be having sex, that can be doing lots of different things. But dopamine is not actually the pleasure chemical. It is the precursor to those. So what dopamine tells your body, and I just said I wasn't an endocrinologist, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but what dopamine does is it tells your body to get ready for the pleasurable endorphins that come. So it could be a lot of things. So when people say, "Oh, well, that's just your you're just addicted to dopamine." No, you're addicted to the endorphins that come after the dopamine, because dopamine is the precursor to that. So just a little point of clarity right there. So when people start like me start telling you that they know something about dopamine, or it's all about, what is it, a serotonin versus, or not, is it melatonin or serotonin versus dopamine? No, those are precursors. So what did you say here, Mask? You said next red pill lesson I really need, Rollo's how to Photoshop excellent thumbnails. Well, let's see, you actually start working in Photoshop in 1993. That's how you get good. I actually did. I started using Photoshop in version 2.5, 3.0, somewhere around there. I remember when it first came out, it was, I remember when 3.0 first came out. I was really excited by it. But yeah, ask me about that sometime. I'll be happy to tell you all about it. Awaiting book 4. I have no idea how to. Why do you guys do this to me? Didacux, whatever. Didacux. I like that. Your name is now Didacux. Awaiting book 4. What actionable framework can red pill Christian men take now? The manosphere is flooded with frauds, marrying post-wall CC. Yeah, cock carousel. Thanks, Rollo. Yeah, you're right. And Didacux, you you will definitely be getting quite a bit of actionable information out of book 4 about exactly these topics. So moving along. Did I miss anybody else here before I get started? You guys hammer me before I even get into this. David Furtado says, after reading that statistic about girl sexual partners before marriage, I can't get over how the guilt of dating a girl I know I won't marry, thinking I'm ruining her. How to get over this guilt? Okay, Davey, we'll take that at the end. Let me see. Sam, bookmark that for me. Bookmark Davy, whatever the hell your name is. Maybe it's because you have a confusing gendered name. Okay. Did I not talk? Okay, I got these already. Those are the 2 that I got. Oh, this is the one I missed. I met a pretty 26-year-old. Oh, good for you. Tell you what, man, John, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Okay, so here's why you suck with women. You don't understand 3 simple things, and they are instinct, emotion, and reason. And a lot of guys will say, well, I'm no good with women because I'm not good looking enough. And that's, of course, the black pill. Oh, if I just look better. Are there the looks maxers, or these are the guys who want to go? I saw here's a message here really quick. All you guys who are looks maxers and you say, I can't get that sculpted jawline. I'll never look like, I'll look like this all the time. I'll never get a girl. There's this thing, and I don't know if this really works or if this is just BS, but they have this jaw exercise. And I just saw it. And I tweeted it out. I'll have to go dig it up again, but I don't know how it came up in my YouTube suggested videos, like here, maybe this will interest you, kind of thing. And it's I don't know, it's like this rubber clamp where you do like this, and it's supposed to build up your jaws. And then of course everybody saw that and they were laughing their asses off, because they're like, you'll just end up looking like a chipmunk. Right, because it'll build these muscles right here, and it won't do anything with this. It'll just build your chops up. That's what it'll do. I thought that was funny. I was joking about that. I said, hey, black pill guys, now here's your chance. You can now, I wish I would have thought of it. I wish I would have gone, hey, this is great. And I found it. What's funny is it's probably some plastic byproduct that they were making PVC piping or something. And they go, hey, I got a brilliant idea for this. That guy's making $1 million off of black pill guys right now. But it's this chomp. It's like a bit, almost like a horse bit, but it's made out of like heavy gauge rubber. If I go look that up, it's funny as hell. So here's the thing. Okay. This is actually good. I'm glad you brought this up, Juan Sebastian. You look like you can play guitar, so you look like you're going to need some help here. It says, I'm not good with women because I can't beat the damn crippling approach anxiety. Yeah, I know. I get that. That's a fear of rejection. And a lot of that comes from not really understanding. Well, a lot of guys today, particularly in this upcoming generation, I don't even know what to call that generation, right? I'm Generation X. The generation before me were the boomers. And then there's the millennial generation. There's the Zillennials. Maybe that's in between Generation Z, which I guess my daughter would be a part of. But even maybe this is the same generation, but like all the kids who were born in year 2000 are now 20 years old. And a lot of these guys, like I was saying last week, I showed you guys that, actually, I think I showed Ryan last time. I showed him that meme of the rainbow-haired kid who they were just so impressed that this is the first generation that was brought up on Google, on Tinder, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Pinterest, whatever, all of these things. And we're such a great generation because we've never had any human contact and never had to, we've learned everything with our digital consciousness and not with our actual learning, like seeing things happen in real time. It's all been sort of stage managed for us, or for that generation, I should say. So yeah, I mean, a crippling approach anxiety, we can get into that, but hear me out here first is, there's an instinctual, that the fear that you have when it comes to approach anxiety is an instinctual fear. So that's actually where I'm going to start today, which is instincts. So there are three. Let me scroll down just a touch here. Sorry, guys. What are you talking about, Armando? It all comes down to egalitarian equal display. Yeah, it does. But again, hear me out here. You guys are going to love this one. So there are three processes that human beings use. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most higher order animals use, but certainly human beings use. And I'm going to put on my, again, like I was saying before, I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not an evolutionary psychologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not a sociologist. I'm not any of that crap. Okay. I'm just a guy who has some ideas and who connects dots. Right. I know enough about these topics to get myself into trouble. And I think you guys probably do too. You probably do too. So, there's three processes that higher order animals, and including human beings, use to interpret their surroundings, their environment. And that is instinct, emotion, and reason. And before you guys throw rocks at me and say, well, what do you mean animals have emotions? Yeah, they do. I got dogs in here. When my Greyhound Henry passed away about a month ago, my other female Greyhound, Bambi, was very depressed. You can tell. You can, like, when you live that long with an animal, you get an idea that at some point she figures out Henry's not coming back. Henry went out to the vet and Henry did not come back. And I can go out, and this is and it's sad as hell. It's very sad. Like, because we're human beings. We get it. We get the feeling, but a dog's not going to get that, or a child doesn't have a more developed understanding of what emotions are, or a child or dog or a higher order animal doesn't think in abstracts. It just thinks, particularly dogs, right? For a dog, it's like there are two times. There's now and there's forever. So when you come through the door, it's like, oh, you're here now. And they get really excited and they lose their minds and everything, and cats, maybe they rub up against you and everything, but they don't understand emotions. They understand emotions, but they don't understand them in the abstract. And I know I've read article after article about how they test for these things. Like, do dolphins is another one. Dolphins are interesting. Do dolphins have an understanding of abstracts when it comes to like time? And the answer is, like, there are very few animals that have self-awareness, and meaning they know what they look like in a mirror kind of thing. Dolphins are one of those animals. I don't know if dogs actually do, or maybe it takes them a little while to figure it out. But there are certain higher order animals that what we as human beings would define as self-aware. So there are, like I said, there's three ways that we understand our world. The first one is instinctual. The second one is emotional. And the third one is rational or reasonable. And this is sort of like a learning kind of thing. I'm going to talk about rationality. I'm going to talk about reason today in a very basic way. I do understand that there's a lot more to rationality and reason and our ability to learn and retain that learning. Particularly, and again, I have to I'm phrasing this in terms of the animal kingdom, but I mean human beings in this sense. So I'm going to start with the instinctual process, and you'll understand what I mean by interpretive processes is understanding and processing information. So again, I'm going to put on my behavioral psychologist hat here. I'm going to say this is there's stimuli, there is the processing of that stimuli, and then there's the response to that stimuli. And again, I'm doing this as basically as I can. I've never been a cognitive guy. My background is in behavioral psychology, and I really wish I wish it had been more popular at the time. To I think evolutionary psych, evo-psych wasn't what it is today. When I was in school, I don't even think they had an actual program. I think it was something you could take as sort of an elective if you wanted to get into it, but it wasn't something, at least in my school anyways, it wasn't something that was really put out there. It was a specialization, and that I wasn't interested in getting, going any further with it than what I did. So, and now I kind of regret that. It's funny is if I could go back to school, I probably would go back and get a master's or get a doctorate in psychology of some sort. Maybe I will sometime. Who knows? When I get too old to do this, then I'll go back and pretend I know what I'm talking about. So anyways, this, and again, this, you might have heard this before. Somebody might have said instinct, emotion, and reason. I don't know. Because on God's honest truth, this is something that I sort of came up with, or I processed, or I connected dots and came up with on my own. There might be something that's similar to it. A lot of people would ask me, like, have you ever read Ayn Rand? Have you ever read The Fountainhead? Have you ever read Atlas Shrugged? Yes, I've read Atlas Shrugged. But somebody, I forget who it was who asked me, I said, are you an objectivist? And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, well, you sound like you're an objectivist, like you have a commitment, or you have like your highest priority is to remain as objective as possible. Like, oh, well, yeah, if that makes me objectivist, I guess I am. But I didn't even know that. And so I was like, sometimes I'll come up with stuff, or I'll come to a conclusion based on either whatever it is that I'm kind of processing my own self. And then I'll think, okay, well, this sounds reasonable. That's how I came up with the 9 Iron Rules of Tomassi, was just listening to what other people were telling me, seeing the commonalities, and then coming up with sort of a, hypothesis, I guess, of what I thought were, good things to use as laws. I call them the Iron Rules. That would be so bold as to call them laws, but they're the 9 Iron Rules of Tomassi. That's how I came to those. How did I come to things like, alphas, or was it women make rules for betas and they break rules for alphas? That's another thing I came up with. But remember, that's all part of a process. So I might have, talked to some people, and they, I came to that conclusion. So what I'm talking about here with respect to instinct, emotion, and reason is the conclusion of quite a bit of writing, quite a bit of thought, quite a bit of interaction with people over the course of, well, in that case, I guess it was about 18 years. So, so instinctually, we react to things in our environment that need or require our immediate attention. So when I'm talking about instinct, one of the things, and this is I'm borrowing from behavioral psychology, but like if somebody threw a ball at you, a rock at you, or a bug flies in your face, you kind of instinctually flinch away. Nobody had to teach you how to do that. You instinctually know that my eyes are vulnerable and I need to cover them up. Or if you're going to get down, you kind of do one of these things where like an instinctual behavior is to sort of crawl into the fetal position, right? So as you're protecting yourself, kind of protecting all of the parts of your organs and things that are part of you. That's an instinctual thing. Another good example of instinct is, I'm sure anybody with a driver's license or drives a car, at some point when you were learning how to drive a car, you got to the section where they taught you that if you were ever in a skid, if you're on ice or you're like slipping and the car starts to skid and starts to spin, that they teach you to turn into the spin, in fact, or into the skid. In fact, that's actually kind of fun. Like, I remember when I first learned how to do that, particularly when I was driving on snow up in Northern California, the Tahoe area, turn like this and you can like sort of like drift, right? But that's a skill that you got to figure out how to do something like that. And you got to understand like when you're at a certain speed or whatever, or how icy things are. And it is, but instinctually, like, what's the first thing you think of? Like, oh my God, you slam on the brakes, or you turn with or worse still, you turn with the skid, or you hit the brakes, and hitting the brakes, even if you don't turn the wheel, just like slamming on the brakes makes it worse. I know, I've done that before. Actually, I used to have a old pickup truck. I used to have a 79 Toyota pickup truck, and that was my transportation when I was living in Hollywood back in my 20s. And I can remember being on a freeway one time and it was raining, and for whatever reason I had to slam on the brakes because I guess I saw brake lights or something. This is in Los Angeles. And all of a sudden, like, all the weight in the truck is actually in the front of the truck. It's like, that's where the engine is, right? So my truck spun completely around. So I'm like facing oncoming traffic. And I ended up, I actually saved my life by going off an on-ramp. And because it was late at night and nobody happened to be on there. But like, you want to faces of death, right? I mean, this is one of my stories, like my brushes with death. I've actually have quite a few, but that was one of them right there. And I'm looking at oncoming traffic in the rain, and they probably didn't see me, but I managed to get off. But that was my instinct, right? Hit the brakes, and then you spin, you make it worse. And so I use this example. I've used this in a couple of different essays, but I use this because we have to teach ourselves. We have to teach our rational mind has to teach our instinctual process ways to save our lives that are better than what our instincts would tell us to do. Because the instinctual process is founded on evolutionary principles. It's what worked for us in our ancestral past. So if and remember, I'm just talking about like going into a skid. You want to stop, right? If you're going really fast, the only thing you want to do when you're going really fast and you're going to hit a wall or you're going to hit the ground is to stop. And how do I climb on? What do I grasp to slow my ascent, kind of thing? That's an instinct. Most human beings are conflict averse. We don't even want to stare each other in the eyes. I had to learn that too. I can remember, and people who understand martial arts, they understand what I'm talking about, because when you get into a conflict situation, unless you're a really hyper violent guy, unless you are likes to fight guy, unless you're the guy that wants to, test himself and likes to throw down and everything. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that most guys and most women are conflict averse. We don't want to get into a fight. We'll try to avoid a fight. It's a fight or flight. There's another instinct, right? So that instinct is telling you to do one thing, whereas that in a modern world, and where we're in a car, in an automobile, we were never evolved to drive a car. We like to go fast. We can be very skilled at it, but it's something we have to learn how to do as human beings. That's why we don't let kids who are hopefully under the age of like 15, 16, drive a car. Because we say, well, that kid doesn't have what it takes to learn how to drive a car. He's not big enough. We don't trust his judgment. If you're 12 years old, a 12-year-old is not going to know how to, well, maybe a 12-year-old can figure out how to drive a car, but he doesn't possess the mental faculties to make good decisions, to trust them with a driver's license at that point. But the point I'm making is that the instincts of that 12-year-old are not the same as they are the same, but they're the learned ability to repress that instinctual drive is not present in the 12-year-old, but it might be in the 16-year-old, arguably might be in the 16-year-old, might be in the 18-year-old. That's one of the reasons why we have, sort of these, they seem like they're arbitrary ages, but depending on the country, depending on what the society says, sometimes we'll do that. But my point is this, is that there are instinctual things that we do that are part of our evolved ancestral past that are present. We have to learn how to repress those instincts, or we have to learn how to work with those instincts. And so, for instance, I'm using the conflict example here, because when you get into martial arts, it goes against all unless you're like I said, unless you're likes to fight guy, to put your face in front of somebody's foot, put your face in front of somebody's fist. You would much rather, flinch or get out of the way, Mr. Miyagi, right? The best defense is just simply not to be there. Well, that's instinctual, like, well, obviously I don't want to get hurt. So how am I going to do that? I either have to fight or I've got to flight. And so you have to learn your rational process, your reasonable process has to train your instinctual side, or who you are as a person, to push that down. When we are in driver's training, we teach you to turn into the skid. So what happens? It's counterintuitive, but against every, all your instinct and all your guts, wow, holy crap, the car actually rights itself. Yeah, it does. It doesn't seem like it would, but it does. And so same thing with martial arts. You have to learn to train yourself so that you are confident in those conflict. Maybe you like it as a sport, but like ultimately what's self-defense for? To defend yourself. And so rather than run away, you stand up for yourself and you learn how to throw a punch. You learn how to block. You learn how to do all the things that you do in martial arts and be effective at it. So I use that example because what you need to understand early here, how the instinctual process is sometimes beneficial to us. It's very much been beneficial to us in the past, because if we didn't have them now, wouldn't have been selected for in the past. So the things that we like, I've used a few of these examples before, but I'll just throw them out there. Like there are certain things that I think we misidentify, or we call an instinct, but it's really an emotion, and vice versa. Or sometimes the things that we process as emotions are actual instincts that lead to those emotions or lead to that emotional process. But when we confront our world, when we are walking down the street, when we walk outside of the cave and we're going to hunt caribou with our buddies, we have to be watching, watch out for dangers. We have to make sure, we're interested in our survival. Ryan Stone uses this example, and I've used it in the past too. It's like when we get hungry, what happens? We get hangry, right? Well, why do we do that? Well, because that motivates us to go out, kick ass, kill something, bring it back, cook it, and eat it. So there's an aggression part. It's particularly for guys, but women get hangry too, right? But it's a motivation. It's that aggression. It's that drive to go and motivate you to go out and go seek food. Right now, once that's been satiated, there's a biological aspect to that too. So let's also look at that really quickly here. Instinct. If the saber-toothed tiger is in my vision, I hear it, I see it, maybe I smell it, maybe I feel the roar of it. I don't know, whatever, however I'm experiencing it through my hardware, that triggers something in my brain that says, holy shit, I better get out of here. I'm going to get killed. Or I better stand my ground, or I better do something. I've got to react in some way. And how did that happen? Well, we have an adrenal response, right? So when we see something like that, we get adrenaline, and it triggers our adrenaline, and that's what triggers fight or flight. Those are the behavior. Fight or flight is behavior, but what triggers that is the instinctual process that triggers that the adrenal response. So that's in life or death situations. And that's usually the way I explain this, because it's easier to understand these things in terms of like hunger or fighting or survival situations. What am I going to do in order to preserve my life? And so, as I was saying, our human beings from our ancestral past who had that went on to pass their genes on to where we are right now. I get this a lot. Like a lot of guys, and I know this will end up being a question, so I'm just going to address it right now. A lot of guys will say, "Well, Rollo, if only alphas get laid, then wouldn't we all be alphas?" And the answer to that is, yeah. You're here because your ancestors successfully reproduced. Whether or not they're alpha, you can define alpha as subjectively or as objectively as you want. The fact remains, your dad, your grandfather, your great grandfather, and back and back and back, at some point they got after it and they had a baby, and here you are. So at some point your ancestors were at least reproductively successful enough to put you where you're at right now. Now that doesn't mean everybody's alpha. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the characteristics that motivated your well, certainly the males in your ancestral past, and certainly the females, got you into, the year 2020 on planet Earth. So yeah, somewhere along the line, your ancestors were successful enough in the mating game and intersexual dynamics. I don't know how they did it. You can go do your, was it ancestry.com? Go to ancestry.com and you can find out. I'm not being paid by them. So instinctually, you have to remember that instinct is based on external stimuli. How does this make me react? Okay, it's not how it make me feel, because that's emotion. I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. But there's a biological component to instinct as well. I was just doing, what was it, a couple weeks ago? I did the episode on shame. And somebody reminded me of this, and I feel ashamed for not having remembered this. Shame is also a biological response. So when a woman shames you, or your parents shame you, or maybe you just simply feel ashamed or you're embarrassed or for whatever reason, what happens? Well, your cheeks flush, right? You get coy. We have the kind of a physical manifestation of what our instincts are telling us, that we should feel ashamed, like we did something that was bad. And there's a physical manifestation. Same thing with the adrenal response. Oh, danger, saber-toothed tiger, adrenaline, fight or flight. Let's get a shot of adrenaline and get the hell out of here. I'm hungry. Well, I'm sure there are probably, I don't know what the exact biological response from hunger would be, but I do know that there is a biological, maybe it's endorphins, I'm not sure, hormonal shift that happens when you are hungry, and that triggers things in your brain, so you will go and do things. Well, same thing happens when you're horny. Okay. I've used this about 1,000 times when I talk about how men objectify women, sexually objectify women. And if you are a woman watching this, I'm about to inform you something that maybe you don't know. When a man, and they've done these are fMRI tests. I'll dig it up. There's actually several of these, and I've linked them. There's probably in my general collective links, but there are several studies, fMRI studies, brain scans, things like that, where they'll set a guy up and they'll put him in a chair and they'll show him images of like a half naked chick. And sometimes they'll show like porn, right? They'll show like homosexual porn or heterosexual porn, or like two hippopotamuses banging, right? Or chimps or bugs, or just to sort of see where in the brain does what triggers what in the brain. When a man sees a half naked woman, whether it's a centerfold or even just like the Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover, it triggers a part in a man's brain that is associated with tool use. Now, they're not going to say this, but this is my hypothesis here, is that the reason that it stimulates that area of the brain is because men's reproductive problem is a problem. It's something to solve. How do I solve a problem? If the car is broke, how do I fix the car? Well, I need tools, right? I need to figure out something. I got okay, that's, that part works there. And usually, and in I should also add this, in the scans, it was also shown that men see women as parts before they see them as a whole. And one more study that's actually pretty good is that men will prioritize sex above food in the thought process. So if it's reproduce or starve to death, it's always going to be reproduce, because and from an evolutionary perspective, why not, right? Because if I'm going to die because there's, I'm going to miss out on food, at least I'm going to reproduce and maybe my kids will go on to the next generation, kind of thing. So there's a lot of these things that are instinctual. They're parts of us that are like what I call our evolved mental firmware. They're parts of us that were very useful in the past, that gets us to where we are. And I would say arguably they're probably still very useful in certain contexts. As soon as everybody, I thought it was funny, as soon as we had the pandemic, as soon as everybody started talking about, oh my God, this is the end, we had the doomsday, we had the preppers, right? The preppers were going, finally, vindication, and maybe things have changed now, but the instinct to want to survive is part of the human experience. It's how, again, it's the adrenal response, it's the sexual response. And so let me just finish the thought I had here, is when a guy sees a woman and she just doesn't even have to be naked. It doesn't even have to be an act of sex. It can just be a good looking girl with a Playboy centerfold, right? Or it could just be even a girl in a the bikini poster you had when you were, do they still have that? I don't know, maybe kids don't do that anymore. Like, you'd have a picture of like Heather Thomas or Farrah Fawcett. Farrah Fawcett is too old for me. But I'm talking about Christy Brinkley, Kathy Showers. I'm trying to think of all the girls that I used to have as posters on my wall. When you see those, it triggers that part where it says, okay, if I could get to that, you want to know why Maxim and Playboy are so popular, is because if I could get to that point, I could solve my reproductive problem. That's your lizard brain. That's your brain saying, well, if I could just do that, then I could, if I could just get that, I could have babies, or I could start a family with that. That looks like a satisfying sexual experience, but the underlying instinctual reason for that is because you'd be solving your reproductive problems. So there's a lot more that goes along with that. And I'm just going to talk really quickly about the guy who was, I'm sorry, dude, I forgot your name, guitar guy, who was asking me about, I have this crushing fear of approach. It's very common, right? Approach anxiety. Why would you be scared to go and talk to a woman? What is it in the process? You see a good looking girl, but you're afraid to go and do an approach. This is the early pickup artists did something very similar to this. Like they would go out there and they would make a game of it. And they would say, okay, guys, we're all going to go out to these clubs, and it's going to be your duty to get shot down 10 times. And you can't come back to the clubhouse or whatever until you go out there and you get shot down by 10 girls. Or you approach them, and it was funny because they would do and say, if you succeed, if you actually got a number close or a kiss close or whatever, if you actually succeeded in your game, that was a failure for that test. The idea was to go out there and get shot down, because the practice was, of course, to teach you to overcome what your instincts would make you otherwise be hesitant of. So why would a guy, what is it about our ancestral past that would make a guy feel self-conscious about going and approaching a woman and chatting her up, right? I'm not even talking about number closing. I'm just talking about going and being sociable and talking to that. Like I talked to, and I'll tell you why here in just a second, but I want you to sort of understand that there is an instinctual process there. There's an approach anxiety is not something you learn. It's something that is that you're hesitant to do. So at some point in our ancestral past, it made sense for men to get that, to be a little hesitant about that, because this is like approach anxiety is something that's been around for a very long time. Do you remember Cyrano de Bergerac? Remember the guy who had the big nose and he couldn't profess his love to the girl. And then so he got his good looking friend to go do it for him and pretend he was him and sort of like live vicariously. That was the whole point of that. I guess it's a play. Was it a play? Yeah. And so that here's an example of a guy with approach anxiety from way back in the day. And I'm sure that if I went back and I looked in ancient Greek times, you'd probably find a Greek play where that same dynamic went down. It's just something that we do. So at some point along the way in our ancestral past, it made sense to be hesitant about approaching a girl. Now, of course, also in our ancestral past, it also made sense to go in, dominate another tribe, kill off all the men and the boys, and take their women and rape the women. That also made sense back then. I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm just saying that was a way to solve a reproductive problem. So why is it that the same species, human beings, has a hesitancy to go in and talk to a new girl that they meet and sort of chat her up and seek her approval? Because that's really what it is to say, am I approvable for your intimate considerations, kind of thing. So the same species that does that is also the same species that will rape, pillage, and kill and take war brides. So that's sort of the conflict here. But both still are instinctual. There's an instinctual fear. Like when I talk about buffers, Why are buffers even a thing? I talk about this with John from Modern Life Dating all the time. Like, why are buffers even a thing? Well, because it in some way buffers the fear of rejection. Okay, why would men fear rejection? Why would maybe this is like bonehead? Well, of course there are. To us, it seems like common sense. But I'm the guy that looks under the hood, right? I'm the guy that goes, well, it's not all common sense. Why? I'm asking like the obvious question: why is the sky blue? Right? So there's a part of us that is hesitant to talk. Now, I have heard, and this is not me. I'm gonna because I'm cool like this, and I will say where I got my information from. This is actually from Mystery Method. Mystery back in the day hypothesized also that in our ancestral past that it made sense for guys to be hesitant to talk to a woman because instinctually they knew that that girl could be the property, could be the emotional ego investment of another man, her brothers, her father, an outlying tribe, whatever. Because remember, back in the day, human beings were very, and this was prior to the sexual revolution. Human beings were. People say, well, like women will say, well, women were property back then. Well, yeah, they were, but why were they property? They were property because we wanted to keep a family going. We wanted to keep. Human beings are instinctually tribal. We're instinctually tribalistic, I guess, is would be probably better. I've written 2 essays about the innate tribalism. This is where I sort of part ways with a guy like Jordan Peterson. I'm not about the rights of the individual so much as I understand and I acknowledge that human beings are primarily tribal. And what is the basic tribal unit is the family. It's one man, one woman get together and they have 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids. That becomes a tribe. And then the guy, the male who has all of this investment into that, I'm not saying the women don't too, but the man who has the investment in that also has a vested interest in the solving the reproductive problems of his children. That's how you get like prearranged marriages. That's how you get women are property kind of thing. And it's not so much, oh, we're gonna completely dehumanize women and just destroy them as valid, I don't know, existential beings on planet Earth. It is again solving a reproductive problem. I have a tribe. I don't want just anybody in my tribe. I want men that I can trust in my tribe. I'm not going. I have a tribe myself, right? I got my daughters right outside the door. I have 1 daughter. What if I had 5 daughters? Do you think I would be 5 times as interested in making sure that those daughters married the right guys, so that my tribe is expanded and grows and becomes not so much more powerful, but certainly more survivable? Because remember, we're talking about survival from our ancestral past. Now, of course, that blossoms, or I should say exponentially expands into beyond the family, we become a tribe. But on the tribe, we become a region, where we become a people, an ethnicity, and from there we become a nation. From there we become, and it's so larger and larger tribal units. But the basic tribal unit is the human family. However, that's defined, whether it's patriarchy or it's polygamy or whatever. We can define it, but human beings, you're not going to take that out of the human being. Human beings are innately tribalistic. That's not to say they can't be individualistic. They can, but on some root level, we are interested in, particularly men. And another instinct, of course, is paternity, knowing what your paternity is. And that's one of the reasons why we get jealous. Jealousy being an emotion, but that jealousy is triggered by an instinct. Is this bitch cheating on me? Because if she is, then all of my investment into her is for nothing, because I am investing my resources, my time, and everything else into a child that might, or maybe prospectively, might not be my own. So that's the instinct part. But the emotional part, the more complex side of that, is that translates into a feeling, and the feeling is jealousy, or the feeling is possessiveness, and from there, the behavior might be mate guarding. And there's instinctual behaviors, there's emotional behaviors, there's rational behaviors. So let's remember to separate from all of these things, instinct, emotion, and reason, the the idea, anyways, that there are behaviors that are associated with each one of these processes. And sometimes it's more complex. So you can have compounded behaviors. So it can be instinct, emotion, and then bam, behavior, right? We do that all the time, right? Especially if you like fits of rage, crimes of passion. The instinct is, she's cheating on me. The instinct says, well, she's cheating on me and she's cheating with my best friend. And you see this here, or let's say best friend. She's cheating on you with some random dude. We see that instinctually. The instinct says she's not trustworthy because she could cuckold me. That's really where it comes from. We laugh and joke about cuckoldry, but that's where it comes from. And right now, I was just reading an article about some girl who was some gal, because she was older. You call older women gal. She was talking about, what was she saying? She was saying that she wanted an open cuckoldry. She was just saying, we should cuckold all men and it was in some book that she had written, and actually it was an older book. Somebody showed me this, maybe she was a professor or something. I had really kind of buck teeth. I can't remember. I put it on Twitter last week, but she was talking about how, pragmatically and practically, it works better in society if women go and breed with the guy who is the best genetic specimen, and basically open hypergamy, right? Breed with the guy who's the best genetic specimen, and then get the guys who are the best providers and provisioners to accept to be the father, the parentally invested male in raising that child that their instincts, that women's instincts would presume is genetically superior, or that it was better sex for them, or the guy is better. So she was trying to make a case for the fact that like cuckoldry, rather than being something shameful or something that should be punished, is something that we openly do. And the only time in history where we can do that is in a gynocentric social order, when women are controlling the narrative, and they're controlling in some cases the government, and controlling the social order. That's where you end up, because that social order is then converted to facilitate women's reproductive mating, their mating strategies. And so I'm using this because when you see, but here's the problem. Here's why this won't work. Because in men's instinctual, our evolved mental firmware, in our instinct says jealousy. Jealousy leads to rage. So it's like the instinct says, I can't trust her. Oh my God, I'm getting cuckolded. I've been putting all of this time and this energy and this investment into this child. There's the potential that the child isn't mine. Okay, so that's the instinctual part. What's the emotional part? The emotional part is jealousy, rage, anger. Those are emotions. And what happens then? Bam, crime of passion, right? Go kill them both. Or the guy who gets zeroed out. That's another good example of this. The guy who just is despondent and doesn't know what to do with himself, and he wants to kill himself, but he's going to take the wife and the kids with him. That's emotion, and then a behavior stems from that emotion. Now, he probably doesn't get to the reason part. He doesn't get to the rational side, because it's halted right there. The process is halted right there. So behavior can be manifested from all three of these, or they can be compounded through all three of these. And I wanted to make sure that I put that out there, because I think a lot of guys will think that the guys I've talked about this with prior make that mistake. They think that the behavior is not mutually exclusive from the actual process, the instinctual, emotion, and reason. So that's instinctual. So I think I'm probably covered that pretty well. Let me look at my show notes here really quickly before I move on to emotion. So this is the overview process right now. This is what I'm getting to, and I'm looking at my notes here. Right, I probably should stretch this out over 2 shows. So that's the first thing. I'm looking at my notes here: instinct, emotion, and reason, an overview of the interpretive the interpretive process, so you guys understand what the interpretive process is. So I also put this here: looks, money, and game. I think a lot of guys think that the reason they suck with women is because of one of those things. Like they think, well, I'm not good looking enough to get a girl. I'm not I'm not rich enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough social intelligence. I don't have enough game. All of those stem from these interpretive processes so instinct, emotion, and reason. So when, like I was saying before, the guy who was asking me about, the guy who was asking me about approach anxiety. Well, why do I get it? Well, it's not because you maybe on some level of consciousness, you say, well, I'm just too ugly, or she's out of my league. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. She's out of my league. Guys, one of the reasons why I put, I think it's number 8 or 9. 8 or 9. No, it's 8. 8 was always let a woman figure out why she won't have sex with you. Never do it for her. And what that means is that you don't shoot yourself down. I wrote that into a post called A League of Their Own. And this is what was a really common thing, is a lot of guys would say, well, she's out of my league. I could never get with a girl like that. Well, I think there is an instinctual process, or there's an instinctual part of guys who they think that because they're not good, or they haven't had success with that kind of a woman, that they would love to get with a chick like that. We all love to get with the 8s and 9s and 10s. Right? We'd love to get with all these girls, but we don't. And we shoot ourselves down before we even get to that point. Why do we do that? Why do we shoot ourselves down? Why do we talk ourselves out of it? Why do we, and this is why I wrote the rule, why do we try to help women shoot us down? Well, because that's the instinct. We think that we're not on that level. We think in terms of leagues. So how do you get out of that? Well, you have to go to the rational process. The rational process is how we learn. How do we learn how to turn into the skid? How do we learn martial arts? How do you learn game? Game is just simply a learned process, a rational process. So I've said this many times before. The red pill, understanding intersexual dynamics, is the theory, and game is the practice. So you can sit here, and I'll be the first one to tell you this, because guys will say, well, Rollo is just all about theory. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's what I talk about a lot. But I will also say that none of this makes a damn bit of difference unless you walk out that door and you go put it into practice, experiment, fall flat on your ass, come back, reassess, and figure things out. In fact, I get a lot of guys who will go out, they'll understand game, just the most basic parts of game, and they'll be successful with it. And those are the guys that worry me the most, because those are the guys who are just going to go, hey, I figured it out. Right. Okay. I must have the cheat codes now. Thanks, Rollo. See you later. And I'm like, no, wait, come back. Let's talk about why you're successful. No, man, I'm out late. Bye. This is the hottest chick I ever got with. 6 months later, I think she's BPD. How do I get my girlfriend back? Oh, I lost the frame, Rollo. What did I do wrong? What you did wrong was just blow me off at the end. It's more important. So I think it's almost more important to understand why you're successful than why you're failing. And that's a life issue. That's not just with chicks. So, Bulletproof Coffee. They don't pay me. But they damn well should pay me. I have no affiliate marketing. Okay. Yes, Emily. Clearly I put it on there as a decoration. Yeah, that's me. It's all about the decoration, man. All right, let me. I'm gonna. Shit. Hang on one second. I'm just gonna filter back through these and see if these are any. I'm gonna look at some of these supers before I move on to emotion here, because I want to make sure everybody. I want you to feel loved and heard on the rational. Let's see. John Sebastian says, I'm not good with women because I can't beat the damn crippling approach anxiety. We talked about that. Armando talked about you. Ace in spades. Not a black pillar, but I've debated with them, and I think when it comes to looks maxing, they condone lifting weights and building muscle. Oh, good. That's not the only thing, though. And I just as sort of a brief pause here to insert pause here. I got a message, or I got a tweet. I hope it's the right guy. I'm not sure, because it's kind of it looked like an egg account, but I got a tweet from a guy who was telling me he was facing LMS. And I know a lot of guys have been asking me like, oh, you should go on with him and debate him. I'm like, well, I'll be happy to talk to the guy, but I don't know about a debate, because what are we going to debate? Tell me what the topic. Everyone wants to debate Rollo Tomassi, but they don't want to tell me what the topic is that they want. I disagree with you. Okay, what? I don't know. You're a cult leader. That's not a debate. That's your uneducated opinion. But I might, I don't know. I don't know what we would talk about. And black pill seems to me to be sort of I think it's fairly obvious. Black pill is very defeatist. It's very, I don't want to cross the abyss. Don't tell me what opportunities and benefits wait me on the other side. I like commiserating with all my black pill friends, and we're all doomed. So screw it. I'm out. Okay. That's where you're going to be. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to convince you. And let's see. Did I do this one? Oh. Besides RSD, which pickup artists do you vouch for now? Troy Francis. Although I don't know if you really want to call Troy a PUA right now. I don't. Here's the thing. Let me explain something to you. And then again, this is the pause section here because we're at about an hour right now. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, please do. I'm going to tell you that right now instead of at the end. Also get the. I'm sorry about the mix up on the time. I was thinking in Pacific time zone and not in Eastern Standard time zone. Sorry, things get a little weird for me in the lockdown. So anyways, hit the like button, please. Should I put this out here? There you go. Where'd it go? There we are. Hit the like button. There, now you can see. Okay, and see, when I do solo shows, I can't do all the fancy schmancy things that I do when I'm on Roll Zero or whatever. So besides which pick, here's the thing about PUA right now. PUA is, from what it used to be, is dead. So when people start whether it's like MRAs, everybody hates that. Everybody hates the PUA. Everybody does. It doesn't matter who it is, right? It's the well, I forget who said this. This is a quote I picked up somewhere. It says, if there's no boogeyman, nobody gets paid. And what that means is if there's no enemy, if there's no other, if there's not anybody to ridicule or insult or throw rocks at, then there's what are you doing it for, right? And I think a lot of PUA is like the old school PUA, like the mystery method. Like, I know PUA because I grew up with it. I saw these guys doing it. I studied these guys. I listened to them at the same time they were doing all this stuff. And the PUA of like RSD days and mystery method and alt fast seduction, yeah, really, all that stuff is gone now because things have changed. We're in a new generation. I was saying that in the beginning of this podcast, live stream, podcast, whatever. PUA is just it's the whipping boy now. It's this caricature. So if you're a trad con, oh, I hate those PUAs. If you're a MGTOW, those PUAs. A black pill, here's this guy. He's Rollo saying that because he's a PUA, and if he doesn't say that, he won't make any money. I know. Read my friggin' book, guy. I mean, figure it out. I don't talk about stuff like that. I don't care about stuff like that. I'm moving on. See, this is much more. You get the cerebral stuff here. But anyway, as far as PUA is concerned, if your image of a PUA is mystery, circa 2002, 2001, with the big top hat and the black fingernail polish and the big fuzzy feather boa and like the black eye, the guy liner and stuff like that's what you think a PUA is. Remember this, the game that Neil Strauss wrote, I was just mentioning that earlier today. The game was published in 2005, right? That was 15 years ago. You think all that stuff is still, I mean, we live in a pretty fast paced society. What was it? Life comes at you quick, right? But we're going to call PUAs, we hate those PUAs. They're all PUAs. Everybody's a PUA. Anybody I don't like is a PUA. Everybody I don't like is a Nazi. Oh yeah. Anybody I don't like is a PUA. Well, nobody does that anymore. Not any. I mean, when I look at like the guys who are actually practicing game and teaching game, a lot of those guys, either they're gone or one of them I know is in jail, right? Nick Krauser, who I thought was a fantastic PUA, is no longer doing what he was doing. All the guys who used to do PUA, Roosh, I guess Roosh did PUA. I don't know. He doesn't, clearly you can see what became of Roosh. But when you start talking about how do I learn game, how you learn game is not by looking up who the best PUA is. It's looking at figuring it out for yourself and putting it, go learn mystery method. Definitely go learn the basics. Here's what I usually tell people when they ask me that is they say, well, who's the best PUA? Where can I get some good knowledge for the basics of game? I used to be able to say, go look at the old stuff from RSD. I can't do that anymore. Not because I think it was bad, but it's just not there anymore. RSD decided they were going to go, unless you can find an archive of it somewhere. I know it's not on YouTube, but I went looking for like old school videos. I was going through some of my archives on the Rational Male, and I was looking for some videos, and they're gone. All the RSD videos I was trying to reference were gone. So I don't know what to tell you, to be honest with you. Like, where do you go look for good game? I mean, go look. Okay, I'm going to give you the plug. Here you go. Go to Troy Francis. Go to John from Modern Life Dating. Those are two places you can start. I think to a lesser degree, go look at Goldman stuff. I'm trying to think who else would be a good one. What is it? Got Game. There's a few follows that I have on Got Game is one of them. It's a follow on Twitter. Hit me up about that later. Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that because I really need to start a list so that when I get asked that, I can give you an educated response. Radio Rebels. Does being crazy or a nutcase come from instinctual or of sexual passion or something else? Depends. What we call crazy now is not what we called crazy back in the day. So remember that old show MASH? And do you remember Corporal Klinger on MASH? And Klinger always dressed up in women's clothes. He was always in drag. And it was the laugh track for MASH. And it was funny. And my dad used to watch MASH all the time. And they, I remember when wearing women's clothing going in drag was what insane people did. Like insane men. Cross-dressing up until very recently, the APA would have designated that as some sort of like psychological disorder. Now it's normal. So what we think crazy is now, or what crazy was in the past, it all kind of depends on what the zeitgeist is, I guess, of the century. But more to your point, I know where you're going to go with this. This is like, what about when women are like BPD? Is that instinctual? And I would say yes, it is. Anything that comes from sort of a sexual dynamic is almost always, it starts instinctual and then it goes bigger from there. And then we get into emotion, which I'm going to talk about here in just a second after I get this one. Hermit the Frog says, meet up with girls during Corona or stay at home. Stay at home. There, I told you. Or you can go learn how to do it online, right? What is it? I think John's doing John from Modern Life Dating is doing like a Corona game. well, if you prove it to me, I'm not going to John knows this. I don't endorse anything by him until I see what it's about first. That's why I endorsed Body for Life Mastery. No, was it Body Language Mastery? I think it had some value. That's why I endorsed it. And I thought it was good. But I didn't do it on the first season. Or his first pass. I did it on the second pass. And I won't endorse anything from anybody, friend or not, until I understand what it is that they're talking about. Draped on. Hold on one second. There we go. Now I pounded my coffee. Now I'm fully awake. Dre Thomas says, I've found even when a woman contributes as much monetarily interaction as a man, she still wants that man to act as a man and take charge of the interaction. Amazing. You just figured this out now? So here's the thing. That's instinctual. So when we talk about how women want a dominant man, our women's instinct is to look for a guy who can protect them, who can provide for them, who looks like he's fun to get after it with, who looks like she might be able to get him to parentally invest, hopefully. Those are instinctual things. And a lot of guys, and I realize this is going to be maybe a little bit controversial because I'm not saying this is the way things are. Okay. I'm just saying this is where this is the dots I'm connecting, right? This is where the stats make me think that the reason for these dynamics or whatever, the way that those work is because of this hypothesis. I'm not saying this is like, none of this shit is set in stone, guys. But when we talk about this, that's a good example. When we talk about how women want a dominant alpha male, they want a guy who can protect, take charge, kill another guy if possible. Yeah, that's another thing is when we talk about hybristophilia, you were just asking me about crazy, right? Well, what about those damaged women? And that's easy to say now, is women are just damaged. That's why they do what they do. They are women today. It's the global sexual marketplace. And I've talked about this too. They don't want me. They want the guy they want Chad, who has the chiseled jawline and the V taper and the 6-pack abs. And now I got to go get that jaw exerciser. Man, if you are the jaw exerciser guy, hit me up. I will be happy to put your ads on my channel. That's just brilliant. But so instinctually, black pill guys got it right. Right? They're like, oh, here's what I'm seeing. And now we have access to all this new information, right? We've got the internet. Everybody I know says that I'm ugly. I'm never going to get a chick. I'm out of my league, like completely, because I'm out of my global worldwide league. So there's no point in me ever trying to do anything, or else I'm going to, take steroids, get jaw exercises. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to look better, because it's all about looks, right? So I focus and I fixate on one thing. Or you get guys who are just like, forget about that. All you got to do is just make as much money as you possibly can and the girls will come. Other guys will say, just learn game. Just all you got to do is just learn game. Just learn game. Game is most important. You can cheat the system. You can hack. A game was, I remember back in the 2005, 2008, 2009, game was a hack, right? Like, how do you hack the system? Well, girls are like this. So if I can hack that, like a life hack, right? How do I life hack game? And I used to, people will be surprised when I say this, but I've gotten into, and really knows who I'm talking about. I've gotten into debates with guys who are just all game. And today in 2020, that's kind of hard to believe, because everybody is against game now. Like, they're like, oh, PUA would never work. Like pick PUA hate or slut hate, the Elliot Rodgers kind of stuff. These are the guys who just like, no, it's Chad's and Stacy's. But you'll be surprised to know that there are groups of guys who are, all they think about is game. Like, game can overcome, as ugly as you are, as fat as you are, game will overcome that. That's what I've argued against guys like that. See, I take a more encompassing approach. I don't think it's just one of those areas. I think it's all of those areas together. So if you can have money, if you can have good looks, if you can have game, and you have social intelligence and a congruency, so you can tie all that up, that's a much better deal than if you focus on just simply one of those things. So what you're saying here, get back to Drape Tone. Okay, there it is. So when a woman says when a woman's behavior says that she is looking for a guy who is a dominant alpha male, that's an instinctual need from that woman. That is something that women in her ancestral past needed to get her to where she is today. So, but we don't think that. Like, whenever I use the term like breeding, or I use the term hypergamy, or if I use terms where it's like a little bit more scientific, women think that I'm saying that women are like fiendishly, plotting this out, like planning this, planning cuckoldry out, and maybe in some cases they are, but not most women don't do that. They're following a instinctual imperative. They're following the instinct to get to the hot sex. Well, why do they want to do that? Well, because they want to breed with the best genetic specimen that they can do, because that they can get, that they can get with, because that leads to a better baby. That leads to something, something more than what they are. They don't know that. It's not a rational, reasonable process. It's not, and women get offended when I use rationality and I use reason to explain why instinct motivates them to look for a guy who is dominant. And for the most part, women don't like that because they want to think that it's all about the blank slate. They want to think it's all about egalitarianism. It's all about feminism and equality and all this stuff that has been forced into their what amounts to their rational or reasonable sense. And then that is what is used to modify instinct and emotion. So if I tell a woman, and this, I'm just going to take this from the female side. I will take this from the male side here in just a second. But if you tell a woman, if you raise a woman from the time she's a little girl till she's about 25 years old. So let's just say from 5 years old to 25 years old, in that 20-year span, just 20 years, you can convince that girl through education, through acculturation, through socialization, through college, through religion, through pop culture, through all of these things. And you teach her all. You don't have to make her a feminist. You put feminist ideology into her rational, reasonable, her reason. Guys are going to say, well, women don't reason. Hold on. If you can if you can teach a woman that, and you have to teach a woman feminism or feminist ideology based on what her rational, reasonable, interpretive process is. If you can do that, you can then alter those other processes. So if I convince a woman for a lifetime that she should be a feminist and it's all about equality and it's all this, and you're a victim and you live in a patriarchy and men are all misogynist. And if you keep hammering that in, what is that going to do? That rationality, that reasoning is going to affect her emotional state. And it's also going to color what her instincts are telling her, because instinct comes from instinct is usually from the outside. It's going to color that emotional, her instinctual process, her rational process will color what the information that the instinctual process is bringing into her. So that's how you start cults. That's how you start religions. That's how you start schools of thought and psychology. That's how you start philosophy. That's how you start all of this kind of stuff. Is this it's learning and understanding part of that process. So anyways, let's move on just a little bit here. I got to get into emotion here because I'm running out of time here. The emotional process is that it is another way of interpreting information. Usually when we are presented with outside influences, outside stimuli, it comes through the instinctual process, and then it goes into the emotional state. For men and women, this is different. And this is my theory here, is that when we're talking about instinct, emotion, and reason, for women, it is exactly that. Instinct, then to emotion, and then to reason. For men, in the past anyways, it has been instinct, reason, and then emotion. Now people will say, like, there'll be women who will hear that and go, no, man, men are all emotional. They're stupid. I hate men. Well, here's the thing is, today's men, ever since the sexual revolution, have been conditioned to swap that out, to prioritize emotion before reason. Even though our natural proclivity, an innate way of understanding our world, like I was saying, these are interpretive processes. The innate way of interpreting our world as men is usually instinct, reason, and then emotion. So if we instinctually see something, we react to it. If it's life or death, we deal with it. If it's not, or hopefully we've learned something that will prevent our deaths. But if it's something that is instinctual to us, remember, there's a lot of different things that are instinctual as well. So revulsion is an instinct. Anger is an emotion, but what prompts us to that anger is based on instinct. Men, because of our biologies, because we have more testosterone in us, because we are what we are as men, we process things differently. We do things differently. And so usually for, let's just say, a baseline human male, it is instinct, reason, and then emotion. For women, it is instinct, emotion, and then reason, if they get to it. Because today we're taught not to use reason. We're taught to embrace our emotions. We're taught to express our emotions. We have raised emotion to a religion. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this section. You guys can tell me in the comments whether you think I should put this in the book or not, and at least in the beginning part of it. It doesn't have to be the whole 4 essays. It just be, mentioning this. But emotion is something that has been raised. We feel it so strongly in some cases that we raise it to a supernatural dynamic, I guess. So when we talk, if you read in the Bible, it says God is love. That's an emotion. That is when we feel love, when we feel intense love. It is so powerful and so overwhelming to us, physically, whatever, that we want to raise that physical act or that physical interpretive process up to a higher level. We want to bring that up to being something that's more divine, right? So we say God is literally is love. Is an emotion. Okay. So we raise our emotional states, or we make so much out of our emotions that they become something else. They become like, oh, this is your higher truth. Well, here's the thing about emotion is emotion, it originates here, not out here in woo-woo magical spiritual land. It starts here. You can, if you want to like make a case and say, well, these are higher truths. Well, okay, but you don't even understand what those truths are unless you have some way of interpreting it and understanding it through your brain, through your emotional process. I was talking about, I threw out a article or it's a research paper actually about oxytocin. And oxytocin is supposedly the love hormone. Right? Oxytocin, by the way, is a post-orgasm hormone. And that I'm not an endocrinologist, but I do know that. And it promotes feelings of trust, nurturement. That's why they call it the love hormone. There's actually a darker side to oxytocin. Like I see particularly a lot of like more woo-woo magical, supernatural believer type guys, mostly women, but the believer type person sees oxytocin as the love hormone, or well, if God didn't love us, he wouldn't give us oxytocin. And maybe, in some cases, like when we see women who are on antidepressants, it blocks certain like an ability to care about things. I've never been on antidepressants, but I know people who have, and they have reported to me and said that it sucks because they don't feel like they want to do anything. They lose all motivation to do things. It's not so much that like it's like the emotions that were making them depressed or whatever are gone, but all the emotions are gone too. So it's like they just simply don't care. They're blocking that. Well, if we can do that, if we can find ways to chemically induce, like mood altering drugs, if we can find ways to chemically induce our feelings of a particular emotion, that's not magical. That's not, woo, shining down. No, that's up here. It's in your pituitary gland. It's in whatever part of your brain that reacts to oxytocin, that reacts to whatever. So we can find ways, like for instance, when you are on, when you are on steroids, for instance, what happened? Well, you get roid rage, right? Well, why are you angry? Well, I have all this testosterone in me, and now I'm pissed off, and I get roid rage. Or, I've mentioned this before. I've known female bodybuilders. My brother used to be an amateur circuit bodybuilder, so I ran in those circles back in the early 90s. And I knew female bodybuilders who would go on gear, and the first thing that they would say is, I can't believe you guys are like this all the time, because now her body was flooded with the synthetic testosterone and it made her horny all the time. And that's the first thing most female bodybuilders will report, is wanting to a rise in libido, right? They want to get after it. And they can't believe that guys are like that. We consider this like men's bodies, a healthy male body, and correct me, I'm probably going to butcher this, but a healthy male body produces anywhere between 12 and 17 times the amount of serum testosterone that women do. I think I read that right. So men's sexuality is always on. What does that do to your emotional state as a guy? Like you're all like, what we were just saying a minute ago, when you see a hot girl and it triggers that part in your brain for tool use. That's why men are always on and ready to go. Our sex is our mating strategy is always on. For women, sex is cyclic. And that this is why I really, and I'm going to say it now, this is why I really hate this shit. Because when guys tell me, oh, women are just as sexual as men are, bullshit. That is a physical, biological impossibility. Unless you go and you put that woman on gear, or she's on testosterone replacement or something like that. And the reason I say that is because, again, what did I just say? The mechanics are men's sexuality is always on, women's sexuality is cyclic. That's why it takes men. Hey, guess what? Men and women are different. Now, I will say this is that I do believe that women are far more sexual than most guys give them credit for or understand or will use and leverage to their own advantage. Most guys, they hands off. I don't want to, me too. I don't want to get, a black pill, all that kind of stuff. They don't want to go and, because they'll make up any excuse why not to do something. But the fact remains is that it is a biological impossibility for a woman to want sex as much as a guy does, because we're different. That's one of the, again, we keep talking about, oh, men and women are different. Yeah, that's one of those differences. And sometimes you have to just accept that and understand that. Accept the fact that her sexuality is cyclic. There's no, it is, if women were just as sexual as men, particularly in this day and age, do you not think that there would be like 24-hour, 24/7 strip clubs for women? Do you not think that there would be the equivalent of gay bathhouses for lesbians if they were just as sexual? No, they're not. So, but that's not to dissuade you from thinking that they are, that women are far more sexual than you think they are, but they are not as sexual as men are. So again, biological impossibility. Oh, blah, blah, blah. What are you saying to me? Hi, Rollo. Sorry, this isn't on topic. Okay, then we'll get to you later. Bookmark that for me, Sam. I'll get to him here in a second. Clearly, I'm going to go over because we're at an hour 30 right now. What did you say? Ben Flavor. Rollo, since book 4 is about religion, don't you think, based on red pill lens reality, that atheism is closer to being more right than wrong? No, but I don't think that makes religion more right than wrong. Gosh, I was going to save this for when I was introducing the book, but I'll tell you right now. If you are considering buying my book and reading my book and you're anticipating my book because you think that it's going to validate your religious perspectives, be prepared to be disappointed. I'm not writing this to say, oh, guess what? Islam is right. That's not what the book is about. And I'm not saying, well, Christianity is right or Judaism is right or Hare Krishna's got it. I can't believe it. They were the winners. No, that's not why I wrote the book. Neither is it to validate atheists saying, ha, I knew it. He's the rational male. He's going to validate everything, all my atheist beliefs. No, you're probably going to be disappointed too, because it's an exploration in all of this. It's not like, how can I prove this is right? How can I like, a lot of people think that I'm an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I do have a faith. So just pointing that out. But I understand why people would think so, because again, it's that objectivism thing. Why does Rollo always talk about objective truth? Well, because that's my obligation. And here's the thing, and I'll just leave it at this. As far as religion goes, if your religious convictions are as strong as you think they are, or you believe in a particular way, then your religion should be able to withstand critical inquiry. Your religion should be able to, whatever, put it this way, my God is big enough to withstand critical inquiry, not to shirk away from it and not to, just because you don't have the answers doesn't mean that you can't figure out what those answers are. Same thing goes for atheism, because I look at atheism, particularly like what I call evangelical atheism, the guys who have to go out there and preach that God is dead kind of thing. I see that, and I'm sure people will agree with me. And this is not me shitting on atheists, and it's not me shitting on anybody, any particular religion. It's just that there is this conflict. Like if you believe in evolution, then you can't possibly believe in religion. No, you can. You can make those two reconcile. I've done it myself. I read. There's a really great book. It's called Finding Darwin's God. You guys, it's by author named Kenneth Miller. Really, I think that's definitely going to be one of my accreditations in the book. But if you, and again, this goes for atheists, this goes for religious people, whatever your particular franchise is. If your convictions, if your beliefs are strong enough for you to base your life on those, they should be strong enough to withstand critical inquiry. So, atheists, if that's your belief, you believe there is no God, then you should be able to withstand critical inquiry. And most atheists will probably don't even really care because they just don't believe and go along their merry way. And true believers don't care either because they believe and they go along their merry way. So keep that in mind. What are you talking about here, YOLO? Hi, please put this part in the book. Okay, I will. Just because you said so, YOLO. I'll even put it on there. YOLO said put this. These essays are vital for making meta. Thank you. I'm glad you like those. I put a lot of time into these. That's why I almost feel like I need to do like 2 shows on this. I might have to. 100 push-up guy. Okay, I'll get to you in just a minute, dude. That's a little bit off topic for today. Do I have anything else? Sam, keep a tab on the guys that I've missed here. I will get back to those. Will religion leader get threatened by your book? Probably. I don't know. Depends on the leader. As I said before, Sam Whiskey, if your convictions and your belief set is strong enough for you to put, bet your life on it, then it should be able to withstand critical inquiry, so there you go. I'll just leave it at that. So let's get back to the emotional process. Emotionality, emotionalism, emoting, all of those great things, I think, are overblown today. This is the emotional process. Now, let me just finish this. I will come back to the emotional process. Let's go to reason right now. Reason is the slowest of all of these processes. So it takes a long time to learn, particularly more complex ways of learning take time. Rationality, reason, using that part of your brain, using the learned part of your brain takes time. Again, I'll use the martial arts reference once again. You got to, when you're learning martial arts, you have to put off your instinctual part, because like I said before, most human beings don't want to get into a conflict. They don't want to get shot. They don't want to get punched. They don't want to get hurt. We try to stay away from stuff that we go towards pleasure and we get away from pain, right? We're conflict averse. I'll tell you how I learned this. How I learned conflict aversion is when I've done martial arts, and I'm not going to tell you which one, but another one of my martial arts that everybody knows about is my fencing habit, very expensive habit. When I was learning to fence, one of the guys I used to train with, this guy who was a master. He was from Belgium, and a really great accent too, a Flemish accent. And he would say, you have to, first of all, there's 2 things to fencing, and particularly when I was getting into épée and saber, because you have to really be aggressive, particularly in saber. He would tell me there's 2 things you have to learn when you're fencing. One of those is a killer instinct, to have the eye of the tiger, right? I know it sounds schmaltzy, but it's true. That's where that comes from. The eye of the tiger is the killer instinct. You have to put yourself into a mental state where you're willing to hurt somebody. Now, that could be MMA fighting, that could be martial arts, that can be fencing, that can be whatever. You have to put if you're a soldier on the battlefield, you have to put yourself into a mental state where you're going to actually kill another human being or hurt that another human being. Even if it's a sport, you have to understand, I'm going to hurt that guy. I'm going to take that guy down. Most guys, particularly in this day and age, have to learn that. They have to learn the killer instinct. I had to do that too, because I didn't have that. I was referencing this on Rule Zero yesterday. I was talking about the warrior gene. I have an essay that was based on a documentary that was done by, was hosted anyways, by Henry Rollins from Black Flag. And Henry Rollins is Henry Rollins. It was a documentary about the warrior gene, and is alpha actually a genetic thing? I'm not going to tell you yes, and I'm not going to tell you no. Go to the rationalmale.com, go into the search engine and type in warrior gene. You can watch it, and I won't ruin the surprise for you. The surprise is this. I'll ask you that, do you think that Henry Rollins has the warrior gene, is a natural born alpha? Go look at that. Go watch that, and then come back and then talk to me about it. But there is an instinctual process that needs to be tapped into for you to be an effective soldier. And for the most part, soldiers have to go through basic training, right? We have to learn how to shoot a gun. We have to learn how to impale somebody with a bayonet. Like if you've ever seen any movie with, a wartime movie, there's a period of training where those men have to be brought to be competent in combat. I mean, even Star Wars, right? I mean, Luke still has to learn how to use a lightsaber. He has to train under Master Jedi or Master Yoda, right? So he has to learn how to defeat another person who is wielding another lightsaber and not get his hand cut off. Oops. So there's the reasonable, rational side, the learned side of it that teaches you to either repress that instinct or to tap into those instincts and to use those instincts to your advantage, to your benefit. Usually what that, in the case of like martial arts and stuff, there has to be a part of your training that teaches you to repress those emotions, to the emotional part, to get to the instinctual part. So let's just say the instinctual part's here, the emotional part's here, and the rational part is on this side. So to get to that instinctual side, you have to go through emotions. You have to repress those emotions so that you can be more effective to use those instincts. And hopefully you're using them with the right intent and the right purpose. Obviously, we can train people to be killers, and maybe ethically, morally, how you want to dice that up, you can teach them to put off that emotional sense so that they tap into that instinct and they can use that instinct in to a different purpose, basically, is what I'm saying. So there's instinct, there's emotion, and then there's reason. The reason and the rationality is a learned process, and therefore it is slower than anything else. So to get from instinct, like when we talk about crimes, I was saying before, when we're talking about crimes of passion, when we're talking about how you see your buddy, your wife is cheating on you with your best friend, what's the first? I lost my mind. It was temporary insanity. We talk about that in court, right? The guy's not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. And most of the time they're like, get the hell out of here. But we have different we have different ratings for murder, right? There's murder 1, there's manslaughter. Like, is it premeditated? Did a guy go, I'm gonna kill her, son of a bitch, and here's how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna write down part, A, B, and C. Here's how it's gonna happen. Or does a guy fly off the handle because he has an emotional reaction and he kills his best friend, right? Or maybe it is a high school shooter who was jilted by his girlfriend, and his girlfriend tells him to go pound salt, and the guy that she gets with is the stereotypical alpha male, right? Maybe he snaps, and maybe he goes from instinct straight to emotion and then goes straight to a behavior, which is let's gun down everybody in school. That is part of that process right there. So you go from instinct to emotion to reason. Hopefully you're going to get to reason. For women, that's usually how it goes: instinct, emotion, and then reason. So it's instinct, I'm processing this information, then we go to emotion. How do I feel about this? Because emotion in girl world is the most important thing. When I talk about how men and women communicate, this is a really good example of this. Men tend to communicate overtly, women communicate covertly. Women have a much higher facility, I guess, with communication. They get more from sub communications, nuances, facial gestures. I talked about this with John from Modern Life Dating when we were talking about body language mastery. Women pick up on things that men are just completely oblivious to, and of course, women being, because we live in a gynocentric social order, women go, well, men are just dumb. They didn't see what, the body language of this person. They're just socially inept and they don't get it. Well, in a sense, they're right, because men do not have the same mental facilities for understanding communication that women do. Women talk more, they tweet more, they text more, they talk longer on the phone, they enjoy Conversation, because when they are communicating, it is all about the context. How did the communication make them feel? One of the reasons why women will get together just for the sake of like, oh, let's go have coffee. They will get together just for the sake of enjoying communication with another woman. And when women are speaking and they're talking to each other, they're across the table and they're looking at each other across the table like this. When men are communicating, they're usually looking out at the world. They're looking at the game. They're looking at something, and then they're sitting side by side and like, hey, what do you think? What do you think of this? They're talking and looking out, staring out at the world, because for men, the information, the content of the conversation is what is important to men, because we're transferring information. So again, that's where the rationality comes into play as opposed to the emotional side. So even in our preferred means of communication, for men, we're still prioritizing reason above emotion. Women prioritize emotion above reason. So when women are talking, it's all about, like I said, the context. How did it make me feel? How am I want to get together. And why do I love romantic comedy so much? Because it's making them feel something. I've talked about indignation. I've done full shows on it, on why women need indignation. The reason they need indignation is because emotion comes before rationality. For guys, we're just like, what the hell? Why do you like this? We're like dumbfounded. Like when we're in a situation, a social situation where women are talking amongst themselves or other women, and then another woman leaves or she comes in or whatever, and then she leaves. Then women start talking and they go, wow, did you see that look, that dirty look that bitch gave me? And you're right there. It just happened in front of you. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? Because they understand, they pick up on that. And what happens is it's not about the information. It's about how that exchange made them feel. And I've talked about this with Dr. Everett Piper. Dr. Piper has talked about how in our social situation, as well as our political discourse, we are in the age of feels before reals. And when he said that, I think I've heard that probably in the manosphere a few times as well. But when he said that, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, because we live in a gynocentric social order. Ever since the sexual revolution, ever since the advent of hormonal birth control for women, unilaterally female-controlled hormonal birth control for women, we have been in a steady state of social engineering to turn men into women, right? And then to turn women into men, or we ostensibly turn women into men. We talk about how guys are pussified, right? Or those guys are manginas. Or we talk about how those guys are, we live in the age of soy, like those guys will never be men. They don't have real fathers to bring them up. Maybe that's true. But we are now in an age and a generation where we have blue pill men who have been raised by blue pill men who might have had grandfathers who were also blue pill guys right now. If your boomer grandfather was very much blue pill, you probably got some of that somewhere along the line, unless your dad was a really exceptional individual. But why? Because right after the sexual revolution, when we were empowering women, the fempowerment narrative, which is what I like to call it, ever since then, we have been systematically feminizing. It's social engineering, basically, is what it is. And you guys can debate till you're blue in the face as to who's doing the engineering. But I will say this, is that the last 3 to 4 generations I would include some of the boomers in this. I think the last 4 generations of men have been systematically feminized, either in pop culture, in religion, for sure. That's what I'm writing about. But also by their families, by religion, education. What is it? 78% of teachers today in all levels of education in academia are female right now. The likelihood that you had a significant male teacher in your life as somebody who was influential to you, if you do, good for you, because the odds are at least 78% of the teachers you've had in your life are going to be female, and they're going to teach you as a man in a female-centric, female primary way of teaching you. I joke about this all the time. I say this all the time, is how we have systematically feminized boys so that we teach them as if they're defective girls. Well, how do we do that? Well, because they have all of this female influences, feminine primary interests that are constantly hammered into their heads. As when I talk about blue pill conditioning, this is what I'm talking about. Why am I blue pill? Why am I hesitant? Why do I suck with girls? That's the title of this whole thing. Why do I suck with women? Most likely it's because for most of your life, especially if you lived and you grew up in a Western country or a westernizing country, you probably were educated as to prioritize emotion before reason. Now, what did I just say a minute ago? Most men, if you're left to their own devices and from a naturalistic perspective, men will opt for instinct, reason, and then emotion. They'll go, okay, well, what's the information? Like when I was using the example of communication between men and men, we are more focused on what the information is. We want to know, how do I fix a car? Oh, here's how you do it, dude. And then men form, bonds of brotherhood and friendship and everything, but as a result of doing something. I've said before that women talk, men do. And the best way that men communicate is by doing something, by having a project. When I have guys come up to me and say, hey, Rollo, we started the Rational Male Book Club. Well, we're getting a group of guys together. We have a meetup and we talk about your stuff and we do all this stuff. And I'm like, great. You know what I want you to do? I want you to go fishing with these guys. I want you to go, what do you guys like to do, right? Do you like to snowmobile? Because I'll be happy to go with you. Like, what is it that these guys kind of like to collectively do? Do you like to go to the gun range? Good, go there. Do you like to play flag football? I don't care, whatever the hell it is. You play chess for all I care, right? Have something to do, because when you have something to do, that's when you can communicate and you can form those bonds. That's how you form tribes, right? You have a collective goal for the tribe to do. We got to kill the caribou. Great. I'm going to talk to you. We're going to figure this out. You're going to tell me the information that you know about killing caribou, and I'm going to tell you mine. And I'm going to say, here's where the best caribou are. We're going to go out there. Hey, you know how to make a spear? Yeah, I do. Check this out. And you all know how to do that. And that's in our ancestral past. We had to have teamwork. We had to have cooperation. We had to work together for a common cause, because men are doing something. For women, on the other hand, is more collective, right? They have to rely on the group. What's in psychological circles, it's called the peer clutch. They had to stay in that peer clutch. That's why for women, to be ostracized from a group of women is the worst thing in the world, because as I said before, attention is the coin of the realm and girl world. So but why is that? Well, because women are interdependent upon each other. That's why when I say, I've made this observation before, is that women tend to be more collectivist, men tend to be more meritocracy, like meritorious, I guess is the adjective I'm looking for. But they like, men tend to reward behavior. They reward, like, that's how we form dominance hierarchies, right? Well, you're the Jim over here threw the last spear and killed the caribou. You're cool. We're gonna lift him up and celebrate Jim because he's the one who brought down the bear that killed the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, he's good. Yeah, we're gonna bring him back. But Bob over here, he's he showed us how to sharpen the spears, right? So he's good too. So we're reward based on participation and in achieving that collective goal. Well, as a result of that, we have, men have to find ways, or we had to develop and evolve ways so that we would be focused primarily on content and learning and rationality. Now, I'm not saying, women are just irrational. No, women can be rational, but they have to go through emotion to get to reason. Instinct, emotion, and reason. For men, it's instinct, reason, rationality, and then emotion. So when we are going through the instinct, then we get to the rational part, then we think, okay, how did that make me feel? Oh, it made me feel great because we killed the caribou. We got it. Oh, but God damn it, Steve got killed in the saber-toothed tiger got Steve. Oh. Well, we're finally coming to that. Well, I got to do something to honor Steve. We got to do something, like, there's a problem to solve. Now we got to bury Steve. Now we got to go figure something out because Steve's dead. He was got ran over by the mammoth, right? So there's the act, there's the rational side of things. And it's not to say that men can't be emotional. We can, very much so. particularly when I was talking about like creative intelligence. I was going to answer this anyways, but like, why do women go for guys who are like the artsy fartsy guy, like the guy from The Cure, right? Robert Smith. Why do they go for that guy? Why do they go for those as well? Because it's creative intelligence. There's a selection for creative intelligence, but there's also status, and there's also like pre-selection that goes along with that. So that's sort of a topic for another video, but the thing is this, is that it's not that men can't be emotional. We're very emotional, particularly today. And why is that? Because since the sexual revolution, there has been a concerted effort to socially engineer now 4 generations of men who process their environments, process information, process their interpretive process. It looks exactly like women's. It is instinct, emotion, and reason. So that's why you get a guy like Nicholas Cruz who goes and shoots up his school because his girlfriend broke up with him. He's just doing what he's been taught. We teach our boys, we say, well, you need to get in touch with your feminine side. Okay, how do I do that? Well, you process things like this: instinct, emotion, and then reason. And if you get to reason at all, it doesn't matter. Because when I say that we live in a female primary social order, when I say that when I say that we prioritize whatever is feminine as the correct way of thinking about things, this is what I mean: instinct, emotion, and reason. So when I see a guy is zeroed out and kills himself, kills his wife, kills his family, when I see a guy a kid who, even when I see an incel like Alec Manassian who rents a van and he's still, why does he do that? He's using his rational mind to solve an emotional problem. Like, oh, girls don't like me. Oh, fucking, I'm going to kill myself. And so he wants to mow down, like, I'm going to take as many girls with me as I die. Like that's an emotional, that's what's motivating that behavior. It's an emotional behavior, but his rational mind is, well, I guess I got to go rent a truck first. But he's doing exactly what generation after generation of men have been taught, young men have been, particularly this upcoming one, have been taught to prioritize things. So when I see guys who say, well, it's because you never had a strong father. Well, yeah, maybe, but that father, if that father is still prioritizing is still locked into a female-centric, female-correct way of thinking about things, it's, well, instinct, and then you got to express yourself and be emotion. And that's where we get feels before reals. That's why we have safe spaces right now. That's why we have, college campuses with cry rooms for the guys. I was just reading, and I forget the guy. It was was it Stetler? I can't remember the guy's first name, but he was talking about how, like, he was just overcome with emotion. He started crying, and it felt good for him. And the dude, like, okay, even if that's the case, I'm not saying you can't go cry or feel emotion as a guy, but if that's the case, why are you tweeting this out? Why does it seem like a good idea? Was it Brian Stetler, I think is the guy's name. And I was like, this guy, you want to know why I chose this as the topic today. This is the guy that is supposed to be rational, reasonable, tell me what's going on, get your boots on the ground and tell me what's happening. You're a journalist. You have a journalistic obligation. And even if you are overcome with emotion, guess what? I need the information. Relate to me as a male. Tell me what the information is. Use instinct, reason, and rationality, and then go cry in the cry room somewhere, Brian Stetler or Staler or whatever the hell your last name is. Go do that then. I don't need that now. I need to know what's going on so we can solve these problems. So we're not crying about things anymore. But why does a guy who has been trained, who has been conditioned by the blue pill to prioritize emotion before reason, why does he feel that he should go on? I don't know how many followers he has. Let's just, probably more than me. So let's say he's got at least more than 60,000 followers. You got more followers than me. You're out there virtue signaling, saying that you're crying because things got to you and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Keep that to yourself. Here's one more thing, we're getting really close to the end here, and I wanted to. I feel like I got to do another one of these, but let me finish this up, and then I'll get to the rest of these off-topic ones. But one thing that most guys don't realize that they're doing. And this is why you suck with women, is because you're acting like a woman. You're communicating like a woman because you've been taught from a very early age by your female teachers. You've been trained and acculturated and socialized and educated as if you are a defective girl. Okay, so what's the result of that? Well, you become a defective woman when you get older. But what does that encompass? That encompasses the way that you are thinking. The way you think right now is you think that emotionality and emoting should be your primary interest. So why do you suck with women? Because you are a woman. Because you've been trained to be a woman. In some case, like, you want to know why we have, like, you know, all suddenly now transgenderism is not a psychological disorder anymore. Well, because it's more advantageous for a man to be a woman in a female-centric, feminine primary, gynocentric social order. So if you can't actually be a woman, if you still have to be, oh, I still got to be a guy. You know, we teach our boys to gender loathe. We teach them that they should hate being a masculine man. They should hate conventional masculinity, or we confuse them. So what is the result of it? I've talked about that a lot. I've said, hey, you know, like when I talk about like the guys from the Good Man Project, or what is it? Are We Man Enough or something? These guys are just they would say, oh, I'm confused. I mean, masculinity is whatever I want it to be, right? No, it's not. Not conventional masculinity. There is an objective, rational, reasonable definition of what conventional masculinity is, and you ain't it. And the reason you ain't it is because you've been taught from day one that you should process instinct, emotion, and reason, and that you should just dwell in emotion, because that's what women are doing. You think that you can solve your reproductive problem by becoming more alike like a woman. You can be more the more feminine you are, the more you identify with the feminine. We say that all the time. We get in touch with your feminine side. You need to identify with your feminine. You need to get in touch with your emotions. When somebody says you need to get in touch with your emotions, what they're saying is you need to prioritize emotion before reason. And anytime somebody tells you that, you tell them to go fuck off. Because that's why we're in the shit we're in today. That's why men are like hurting right now. That's why you suck with women, but it's also why you suck at life and some other things too, is because you dwell in that emotional state. You want to know why I have such a problem with black pill guys? It's because they're dwelling in that fucking emotional state. Do something, asshat. Go out there and fucking do something. You have all of this information. You have this, you've got this show, you've got my book, you got 1,000 others just like it. You know what it is. Go and fucking do something about it. You can say, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. You know why you feel like that's a solution? Because you've been taught instinct, emotion, and reason. That's why. So you need to get that through your head. Start prioritizing instinct, reason, rationality, and then figure out how you feel about things. Like and just to put a final period on this, I was reading a story, and I included this, excuse me, in my series of essays called Instinct, Emotion, and Reason. And there was an article in the Boston Globe, I think it was. And this was all before the COVID thing. I think it was probably maybe this was back in 2018, kind of a long time ago. But they were talking about how men between the ages of, say, like 45 and 65, like the prime demographic for guys who are going to kill themselves, and the prime demographic of guys who develop opioid addictions or alcoholism. They said, well, men just don't know how to create. They don't have friends. Like when they get to be that old, they don't have social networks. Why can't they be more like women, right? Women have lots of social networks, especially like when a woman gets divorced, or she decides that, you know, it's time for eat, pray, love. She's got all her girlfriends. She's got she literally has a social network of a feminine primary world that has her back. You know, her church for sure as shit has her back, right? I hate to invoke the name of George Bruno, but when I interviewed George and he told me about the situation when he got divorced, and told me how the church basically took his wife's side automatically, it's because the church has become instinct, emotion, and maybe we get to reason, if at all. because it's feminine primary. Feminine primary social order works like that. Feels before reals, and it's always a sisterhood uber alles. So you know that. How are you going to deal with that? But that's an outcropping, or that's an extension of the mindset that is a feminine primary, feminine correct social order, a way of doing things. But so I read this, the Boston Globe thing said that, well, men don't have friends. They don't make friends. They don't even want to do anything. And they were interviewing some of these guys who were married, and their wives would say, well, he just doesn't do anything. He just goes to work and he watches TV or something. And we criticize these guys all the time. How come he's not doing push-ups naked in the snow? He needs to man up and men of virtue, Well, he doesn't care, and he doesn't need to care. And we look at that guy and we say, well, he doesn't have any friends. That's one of the first things most guys ask me is like, well, I'm red pill. How do I make friends with guys? And I probably should do a full video on that. But the reason why guys don't have those deep friendships is because we're prioritizing, or we're basing the goal of friendship on a female dynamic, on a female perspective, on female correct. So if men were more like women, they would be better humans. If men emoted before they thought about things, they'd be better humans. Like when we talk about, I have another essay called Boys Will Be Boys. And there's another one called Good Humans that I have. And I wrote those because when the Women's March was going on, I saw these little placards that these little boys were carrying around. They were like little bitty male feminists. Yeah, I'm a feminist. My mom said I was. And they were holding these placards, and the placards said, boys will be boys, but then the last boys was crossed out, and then it scribbled in underneath it, it said good humans, meaning, of course, that they weren't, being a boy, it means you're not a good human. So we're going to scribble out boy, and we're going to put good human in there. What kind of message does that tell those guys, those little boys, right? You're not a good human if you're a boy. But don't worry, it's okay. Feminism will save you, and you can be a good human. All you got to do is be an ally. But the reason why those guys in that article don't have good friends, or don't have more friends than they probably should, they don't have any really good friends or close friends. Like, who could you rely on right now if you got divorced or you were in a tough shape? Most guys don't. They don't know, because men prioritize instinct, reason, and then emotion. And we don't prioritize the communication style naturally. We don't prioritize the communication style that women do. So women, when they see this and say, well, there's a problem with my husband, there's a problem with this guy right here, there's a problem because he doesn't have any friends, how do I get him some friends? Like I got to find a play date for my husband or my boyfriend or whatever. They don't understand how men communicate, because they have been taught, just like the men have been taught, that everybody should be like a woman. They should communicate like a woman. We should express our emotions. We should prioritize emotion above everything else. And men don't communicate like that, not naturally anyways. So when I talk about female correctness, the female correct way to make friends is the only way. Like for me to say, like I was saying before, like how guys get together and they do things, that in a female, like we get together, we fix the car, we have some project that we're working on, that in a female primary social order is bad. You guys are, you're misogynists. You want to know why women infiltrate male spaces? Part of the infiltration of male spaces is destroying the way that men naturally communicate with other men. I'm not saying there's some fiendish plot to it. I'm saying that is a byproduct of women taking over male space, because now men can't communicate to each other like they would if it was just guys there. If you're in the locker room and it's just guys there, and you're talking with your buddies and you're talking about whatever, and then the female reporter comes in, you're not gonna say anything. You're not gonna say anything. You clam up, or else you turn into somebody else. Hey, baby, you turn into something else, but you're not having that honest communication that guys would have sort of organically. So that's why, because in a female correct social order, the way that men communicate, the way that in a female correct social order, instinct, reason, and then emotion is bad. It's not the way you should do it. It's incorrect. Instinct, emotion, and then reason, that's the correct way. And if you get to reason at all, Oh, well. Now, last but not least, a lot of guys will say, "Well, women are just irrational and unreasonable, and that's not their priority." And in a sense, the natural priority, natural proclivity, yeah, but that's not to say that women can't also learn to think like a guy. There's lots of guys. There's lots of women that do that, especially in like STEM fields and things. Like if it's important to a woman to assess a situation rationally and unemotionally because it's a life or death situation, or it's just the way, this just the way the science works, to dissociate yourself from that emotion. Women can learn to do that, but it's not their natural proclivity. It's not the way that they're born. So they have to learn that. It's like learning a martial art. It's not natural. It's counterintuitive. It doesn't come natural to them, but they can learn how to do it. I've used this example, and this will be the last thing I say, is when a little boy comes out of the womb, little boy and little monkeys too know how to throw an object better than female little monkeys and human beings. That's why when we say, "Oh, you throw like a girl," it's not that women or girls can't learn to throw like a boy. They can. It's just that they don't have that mental firmware coming out of the womb to know how to put their shoulder into it and throw. Instead, they throw like a girl. And why? Because that's what feels now. That's their natural proclivity. I don't know how to do it, but well, your dad can teach you. I've taught my daughter how to throw a baseball, right? It didn't come naturally to her. Like riding a bike. Riding a bike doesn't come natural to anybody. You have to figure it out. I mean, maybe more so for some, but you still have to have some learning to it as well. So just because you don't have a natural proclivity for something doesn't mean you can't learn it. It's the same thing for guys. So, and we've been doing this for a long time. For our little boys, when I say we teach them like defective girls, what are we doing? We're teaching those boys to learn to go against their natural proclivities, to put girls and women and teacher and mother and sister above themselves in their mental point of origin, teaching them about mental point of origin. All right. Think about others before you think about yourself, Johnny. Why? Don't be so selfish. Girls won't like you. You'll never find a good girl. You'll never get married if you don't do that. Well, what's Johnny's natural proclivity, right? If he sticks to that, we call him an alpha. If he doesn't, we call him a beta. All right, so I'm gonna continue on. Let's get some of these out of the way here. Let's see. Damani Jones says, with the push for PhD and academic achievements, do you think women are more incentivized to develop a value reason? Okay, I just talked about that a second ago. Well, okay. So let's start with this. What do women mostly major in? Humanities, psychology, huge. I don't have it available, but I have a list of statistics that show the most popular, most common majors and career paths that women take. They're almost always in like healthcare. Of course, nursing is a big one. Childcare, communications, like PR, social work is another one. Psychology is huge. I think we're at the point where like 70, maybe 73% of PhDs and I think master's degrees in psychology are women right now. Another thing you should keep in mind. So the natural proclivity is to lean towards things that are more people-based. And Dr. Steven Pinker has talked about this as well. When he was giving a talk, and I think it might have been a TED talk. He was talking about six gender differences, basic gender differences between men and women. And I think number 2 was men are more interested in things and women are more interested in people. Once again, validating instinct, emotion, and reason, and instinct, reason, and then emotion. As I was saying before, men need things to do. Men do. Women talk, men do. Why? Because women are more interested in people, career paths. Men are more interested in things, the outside world, affecting their will on the outside world. This is mentioned that 100 times on this show. That's why. So can they develop a sense of rationality? Can they learn? Yes, you can teach a woman math. Does it mean it comes naturally to her because she's a woman? Probably not, unless she's got some quirk. If we look at, and we have access to this information now, if we look at women's brain scans, we can see how women's brains are wired. And from what we know from, brain architecture, Men tend to be more spatial. We have better spatial judgment. We understand where we are, although we will laugh and say, oh, men don't ask for directions. Yeah, they don't, because we tend to think that we have a good sense of where we are in the world. I know where I am, north, south, east, and west most of the time. And then, of course, the reason why guys don't ask for, oh, you don't ask for directions. Yeah, well, men are so stupid. No, we don't, because we want to think that we are good enough to rely on where we are, because in our ancestral past, we had to know how to get back to camp, how to drag the caribou back to the tribeswomen. But can you, as a man, learn to be more emotional? Yeah, that's all we teach. Can women learn to be more rational? Yes, but we'd like to think that we're doing that, but our natural proclivities aren't rationality for women and our emotion for men. Like women will say this, and I meant to say this as well. Women will say, well, men, if you think that it's not okay to cry, then that's just you being misogynist, or that's those evil chauvinist men. Your dad taught you, he smacked you around, and you got hazed in the school locker room, and you got wedgied, and I feel so bad for you because you have to pretend to be a man. You have to pretend to be a boy. No, that's your natural proclivity, dumbass. But it's women trying to shame you and tell you that that's wrong. Why? Because they want you to go instinct, emotion, and reason. That's why. And that's why you suck with women. So that's another thing, is women, because we live in a gynocentric social order that says the female way of doing things is the correct way of doing things, men will never be able to do emotion, no matter how good they are at it. Men will never be able to do emotion as good as a woman will. And they will never get credit for that, because men aren't supposed to be. Even on a hindbrain, lizard brain level, if we see a guy and he goes, oh man, he's a real emotional guy. He's a really good artist. He's a really good musician. He's a poet, man. What a poet's soul he really has. Yeah, he can be the best, but he will never be as good as a woman, because women have a natural proclivity for it. And then on some level of sort of species level consciousness, we understand that. A man's not supposed to cry. You get to cry. In my book, you get to cry at two things: when your dog dies and when your mom dies or dad dies. When either one of those, then okay. Otherwise, knuckle down, bear down, right? Be stoic. That should be another show. I should probably just do a full show on stoicism. Maybe we'll do that next. But women will always criticize men for not doing emotion right. You don't do it right. You're unemotional. Get in touch with your emotional side. How come you're express yourself? You need to be more expressive of your emotion. I pity men because they can't express their emotions because they're always trying to be macho. Oh, that's just men don't process emotion the same way as women do. It's a biological fact. It's a neurological fact that women and men process emotions differently. I could show you the studies that show that certainly prove that, or show that, indicate that. Men don't, certainly in negative emotions, men process negative emotions way differently, naturally, way differently than women do. Women will cry. That's why because that elicits a response from the protector response from men. When men get emotional, they get pissed. Why? Because that solves the fucking problem. Because that's reason. That's what worked in the past. If I just get pissed off and I go and take care of business, that solves the problem. And well, I pity you. You don't cry enough. You don't comb your daughter's hair enough. No, that's not it. I process emotion differently than women do, and women do the same. And you know what? That's okay. That's all right. You don't have to do that. So, anyways, now Rollo's getting a little hot on the collar. All right. Sorry. Let's move on. All right, this is it. I promise this is it. John Garcia, thank you. I appreciate it. Where's Pat Campbell been? Pat is Pat's back on the radio now. I'm not really sure. I know he's back on the radio. He's doing his show. I don't know that he's doing it full time now. Last I checked, he was doing it like 3 or 4 days a week. He might be back full time now too. But then, of course, the pandemic hit, and I haven't really heard from him all that much. If you want to know what's going on with Pat, I would suggest going on his Facebook page and hitting him up. I talk to him every once in a while. gosh, I don't think I've talked to him in a couple of weeks, but just like, hey, how you doing? That's about it. So go hit him up. Go ask him. Okay. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here we go. Knowledge Seeker said, "Hey, Rollo, sorry if this is off topic, but what do you think about the size queens? Do you think that men try so hard to satisfy women in bed are entering their frame?" Well, I wasn't going to make this announcement just yet because I don't have it 100% confirmed. It will be this week, but I am going to be interviewing this guy, and I think his last name is Sterling. I know that's not his real name. I think it's not Rod Sterling. It's Rob, maybe it's Rob. I can't remember, but last name is Sterling. A dude is I don't know, maybe he's still in the business, but he's an ex porn star, or he is a porn star. I'm going to be doing an interview with him. I'm trying to aim for Thursday about that. He'd probably be the one to ask that question. I have written about how important a man's junk size is. Size matters. There's an essay on the rational male called Size Matters, and it does matter. If you don't think that size matters, or if you believe the female lie that it doesn't, because it doesn't matter. It's the it's not the length of the wand. It's the magic of the magician, or it's not the size of the boat. It's the motion of the ocean. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you for telling me that. No, it's not. It's about size, and women will say it's about size. And if you listen to, and it's becoming more and more, there, along with open cuckoldry and open hypergamy, part of that is women openly discussing how they need a guy with a little bit more length and girth. So any woman who says that size doesn't matter is bullshitting you and trying to save your ego. And why would she do that? And the next question is, why is she trying to save your ego? Well, because she needs you for something. Only you can tell me why. So do you think that try so hard to satisfy a woman in bed are entering their frame? I've also talked about that too. What did I forget? I'm blanking on the name of the essay, but I've talked about how it was an essay. I'll dig it up for you, man. It's I wrote this essay about how guys, like the mostly beta males, they say, well, nice guys finish last because she finishes first. Like you're prioritizing her pleasure above your own. Right? Well, if you don't fuck her really good, then she won't come back for more. Well, there is that. Yeah. But you also have to be dominant in bed. It's not like, oh, what do you want? Can I touch you there? Is this okay? You can't be timid in bed anymore, particularly in a global sexual marketplace where women can see this all the time. Women watch porn too, right? Women hear from their girlfriends, oh, he was great, that kind of stuff. Women talk, obviously. So are you entering into her frame by doing so? No. If it's your frame to be the guy who bangs her better than any other guy, then as long as you're still in your frame, there's ways to do it, put it that way. For anybody who has questions like sexual questions, I'm going to direct you to a book called Sex God Method. If you have not read that book, maybe it's an ebook now. It's eye-opening, and I think I'll just leave it at that. Go check out Sex God Method. Ben Flava says, since book, okay, I read that one. Let's see. Here it is. 100 push-ups guy in the snow, naked. Remember that? Did you guys hear? What was it? Tenacious D and cock push-ups. How many can you do? One. One's all you need. Let's see. What do you say? Me and my partner are planning to have kids. Okay, all good, except her past suddenly concerns me. She gives me mixed signals about how important. What is it? Your past. About her past or your past? All good, except her past suddenly concerns me. She gives me mixed signals about it. How important is it? Well, I'm glad you asked me that because this is an easy answer. I did a video about that with myself, Rich, Ryan, and John from Modern Life Dating all of 2 weeks ago. And it was about exactly, should a woman's sexual past make any difference to you? Go look that up. It's only like two weeks old. It's in, if you're right here, you obviously, you know who I am. So go look that up and watch that. It will give you your answer. Much more elaborate than I can give you right now. Yellow says, hi, Rollo. Yes. Okay. So you want me to put it in the book? Anybody, if you think I should put instinct, emotion, and reason in the book, let me know. Will religion leaders? Yeah. Okay. We got that. Damani Jones said the push. Okay. I got that. NEO gave me $5. Thanks again, brother. I do have a male teacher in my life. Thank you. Oh, Rollo. Thank you. Well, I try. Ben Flava again says, why do women express what they're really looking for in a man when they're with their homegirls, but express it differently to men? Because they're, first of all, I think most women think that they can be honest with their girlfriends, which of course always ends up biting them in the ass because one of their girlfriends will rat them out or will say something when she shouldn't say something. And that's how you get in sort of, intra-sexual combat. But so why do they tell you one thing and they tell their girlfriends another? Well, first of all, it doesn't matter. You should still listen to what, remember, medium is the message. Watch what she does. If she's telling you something different and she tells her girlfriend something different, the likelihood that what she's telling her girlfriends is true is probably what you should go with. So why do they do that? Well, because women, as I said before, women talk, men do. And women like the act of talking. They like it's pleasurable to communicate with other women, amongst women, unless women have been ostracized out of the peer clutch, and then they'll go form another peer clutch, and then they'll have their girls at that point. That's why you call them home girls, right? So when a man, I'm trying to see what else you wrote here. There's another one below. Oh, okay. Sorry. So yeah, I think maybe there's a sense of privacy, or they can be themselves where they can't be that way with you. And even if you're sort of really intimate with that woman, there's just going to be some things like that's the thing that gets me is I think I mentioned this one time before, how women will withhold things from guys because they're a particular guy. Like maybe they've been married to that guy for a very long time, but and women will admit this. They'll say, well, there's a part of me that he'll never have that the one that got away did. So I think it's sort of by order of degrees. Is she telling you everything? She's 100% honest with you. Does she really want to be with you, or is she withholding things and then telling those to her girlfriend? That sort of, I would say that's kind of like a metric for the quality of your relationship or how she really sees you. Also, I would ask you this: is she making rules for you at the same time where she's telling her girlfriends one thing and telling you another, or is she breaking rules? So I think that's really more of a alpha impression upon her. Oh, sorry. Okay, so Yellow said a 5-year-old boy talks to everyone and don't have approach anxiety, but he will have AA later. Approach anxiety later in life. Isn't it proof that AA is a social construct and not an instinct? Yes and no. Here's the thing: is it can be an instinct, but it can also be something that is reinforced. Okay. So if you're a natural alpha, let's just say you're a natural alpha. Okay. If that's reinforced for you, is it a social construct that you're now an alpha because it's been reinforced by your dad or by a society that's really sort of made you into a more dominant, let's say, apex alpha male? Is that a social construct? So is alpha a social construct, or is it something that's instinctual and part of you? So I can put it in those terms as well. So just because something is instinctual and is also reinforced into something, I guess, recognizable by us in a social sense, or at later on in life, for example, like you're saying about approach anxiety, I don't know if I fully expressed this or I fully fleshed this out. Like I was saying about mystery method. Mystery was saying that like approach anxiety, the reason why guys get approach anxiety, because in our ancestral past, if we didn't watch what we were doing, we could end up dead. Meaning, like there could be the girl that we want to approach. Maybe her dad is waiting behind the tree with a shotgun, Or maybe her brother will beat the living tar out of you if you talk to her because he don't like you because you're from the outside tribe, and she doesn't want you to breed with him because then that will create a connection between his tribe and your tribe, and they don't want that. That could lead to you being killed. So approach anxiety is a natural thing. You can reinforce that or you can punish that. So just because something's an instinct doesn't mean that it can't be molded. This is behavioral psychology 101. Okay. There is what's called an unconditioned response. Unconditioned response in this case, I would argue is the approach anxiety. That's an unconditioned response. You're going to be hesitant. Or unconditioned response. I'm going to slam on the brakes because I want to stop while I'm in a skid. It's the worst thing I can do, but that's my instinct. So what you can say, well, you learned to turn into the skid and it saved your life. Okay. In that case, I don't know if that's so much a social construct as it is a molding of that behavior. Rather than using that anxiety and that stress to slam on the brakes, turn into the skid and then maybe apply the brakes a little bit. And then you drift. Tokyo. So is that maybe that? Okay, so maybe I wouldn't say it's a social construct, but I would say that it is molded and modeled conditioned behavior. So that's where I would go with that. So I would say the same thing sort of applies to approach anxiety. Like I was saying before, the guys in RSD used to teach guys to go out and try to get shot down so that they could get over the approach anxiety. So they weren't like, it's no big deal for them. I've been shot down by 100 girls. I'm like, I'm out of you. So they got nothing to lose. Sometimes courage is just having nothing to lose, right? Is that a lyric? I think probably. Like sometimes courage and bravery and all that is just like, let's go for broke because I got nothing to lose. Wes Lee says there's an idea that a man who integrates his feminine side develops a kind of grace between his emotional and rational capacities. Agree or disagree? I would only say that they're like, what is grace? Like, what do you mean by grace? Like, are we talking about like religious grace? Are we talking about, oh, he fluidly moves between emotionality and rationality? Well, boy, wouldn't that be great? I think again, it's modified by circumstance. It's modified by what it is that we find important to us, like what's most important to us. When I talk about the epiphany phase, for instance, women will naturally modify their mating strategy based on circumstance. Men will do the same thing too. In fact, I would say men would do it more fluidly. Like if men can solve their reproductive problem by slump busting and getting after it with a land whale, oh, that's horrible. I would never do that. Well, you would do that if you're drunk enough and desperate enough. At least back in the day. Maybe you don't have to now because you can just go jerk off to porn. But even then, what is porn? Porn satisfies unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. So I don't know. I doubt that. I would say I would disagree. Is there there's an idea that a man who integrates his feminine side develops a kind of grace between his emotional and rational. Well, what I've heard this before. It's like, it's the anima animus thing that you get from Carl Jung all the time. Is like, well, if men were just more feminine and got in touch with their feminine side, then they'd be more perfected human beings because they would be the best of both the man and the woman. Where's that led us? If women, of course, we never talk about it the other way. We don't say, well, women need to become more rational and reasonable. No, they don't need to. There's no incentive for them to, because the society already caters to women. We're already in a gynocentric social order. So why would you want to know why all we do is destroy men and remove the man and debase masculinity, conventional masculinity? Even men are gender loathing. Why is that? Why are not women gender loathing right now? They don't need to. There's no incentive to, because they're at the top of the food chain right now. It's men that need to be debased. It's masculinity that needs to be debased. And the problem is you're never going to find that state of grace, that balance. I'm presuming you mean by state of grace, you mean like balance, right? Well, what do you get when you have a guy who is completely balanced in his feminine and his masculine? And I'm not saying, here's the other thing, it's a mistake. It's a mistake to think that when I talk about instinct, emotion, and reason, everybody's got all three of these. Okay, we start with instinct, but it's a mistake to think that emotion is only reserved for women. That only women have valid emotion is only validated in a feminine sense. No, it's not. Men can be, but we don't like it because men's emotion is anger. A men's emotion is aggression. Men's emotion is jealousy. It's always those negative emotions, right? We never think about like positive emotions, like, oh, I love you, or whatever, right? We don't think of men in those terms. When we say love as an emotion, do we think of men? When we say anger and aggression, well, like jealousy, more often than not, we think of men with respect to jealousy right now. When I was being very critical of the poly lifestyle of Jeffrey Miller and Diana Fleischman, when I was doing the poly episode of this show, one thing that I thought was really ironic was Jeff saying that, to be in a poly relationship means that you've got to find some way to eroticize your jealousy instinct. And that rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, well, it's an instinct for a reason, because it served us for some reason. They say, well, it's those instincts and those emotions, and that doesn't serve us anymore. I would argue it actually is very, it serves us very well. But the problem is it doesn't matter whether it serves us or not. It's still there. And so when you see guys who are like, what was it? Katie Hill, who was the former congresswoman from California. She was in a poly relationship. And why is she no longer the congresswoman anymore? Well, because that poly relationship got outed by her husband. Why? Because he couldn't thoroughly eroticize his jealousy. And that's what happened, is she started getting after it with another guy. And now he blew a whistle on her. And now she's no longer and of course she's on this holy feminist crusade against Trump. But and whatever. I'm not a Trump supporter or denier. Or whatever. I don't hate or love Trump. Put it that way. But because of that jealousy instinct, that affected U.S. policy. That in some way, well, I shouldn't say U.S. Well, California. The California constituency changed because of jealousy and instinct. That's why it's important. That's why we have to think about those things. And so as far as being a state of grace or whatever, I don't think so, because we're not meant to be in that state of grace. And I think the reason why we're idealizing that is because we live in a gynocentric social order. We want to convince guys that there is a state of balance. Like, oh, you can have your anima and animus in entire balance. You can be, what that does is that is a parallel to what we teach, or feminists teach women, which is you can be a good father and a good mother in the same person. You are autonomous and independent of men. You're a strong, independent woman, which means you're a thing. You're not a woman. You're not a man anymore. You're supposed to be the best of both, right? You can raise children and you can teach the boys to be boys and the girls to be girls, because you are this autonomous, independent, self-serving, self-satisfying, self-gratifying thing without a need for anything else in your life, anything away from you. And you combine that, well, for women, you combine that with women's innate solipsism, and you get women who think they're gods. Literally, in some cases, believe that they are goddesses. You'll hear them talk about, like, you'll get like, what's that chick, Ariana Grande, woman, God is a woman. Funny how popular that is, right? Well, because they're taught that they don't need anything. They don't need men. They don't need anything. I don't need saving. I don't need this. Until the floodwaters come and start rising, I don't need anything at all. When we teach men that you can be the best of both women and men, we hobble them. We make them worse. We make them bad women and bad men, because first of all, your brain's biologically, there is no state of grace. Your brain is the way it is. So when you say, well, I was born the wrong gender, well, your brain doesn't think so, because your brain was born as a man or as a woman. When you were in the womb, that's another thing. Sex differences, gender differences take place in the formation of the brain in the womb. It's not outside. It's not, the shit that makes you a man and makes you a woman, makes you a boy, makes you a girl happens right there in the gestation process. So to say, well, we can find a state of grace. No, you can't, because you can't be the best of both of those things. You're either a man or you're either a woman. You're either a good man or you're either a good woman, or you're lousy to some degree as being both of those. Let's see. Eric says, if you see this, Rollo, guess it will get lost. No, I got it. I got you, man. I want to let you know that you do great work. Oh, thank you. I do. I try. I try anyways. I'm just the messenger, guys. And that is appreciated. Not sure if you've ever get this feedback. Well, I did now. Thank you. I told you where Pat is. Thank you for teaching us. All right, man, I will answer this one. He says, hi, I lost a testicle in an accident and the other shrunk. I am 6 feet and have a 6-pack, but I don't feel like alpha. When I act that, I feel a sense of guilt. What should I do? First of all, I think this is a Bubba Misa. You know what a Bubba Misa is? Go look it up. I think, okay, well, okay, even if this isn't a troll, which it reeks of being a troll, but let's just say it's not. Just because you are 6 foot tall, and just because you have 6-pack abs, does not mean that you are naturally an alpha. A lot of guys would disagree with me. They'll say, well, just look at the guy. He's alpha. Well, the perception might be that way, but the congruency between how you feel and what you're about and what you know as your game, everything else, and this is where I part ways with the looks maxer guys, is if you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you are a bodybuilding dude and you have the square jawline, the V-tape, or the 6-pack abs, you're 6'5", and you're like what every woman would naturally say. You look like Jason Momoa, let's just say, and you start dancing around the house in a ballerina outfit. Are you alpha? If you look like Jason Momoa and you enjoy wearing slingshot bikinis to the beach, wearing brightly colored sunglasses on roller skates, but you look like Jason Momoa, are you alpha? That is congruency. We expect Jason Momoa to act and talk and be like Jason Momoa. We expect an alpha just by perception to look that way. When that congruency is gone, that's an easy way of illustrating it. Okay, I can say, oh, you can go put on a pink tutu. Does that make you an alpha? Well, you could say, well, The Rock did that in the Tooth Fairy movie. Well, that's a movie. You're meant to laugh. Why do you laugh? Because it's incongruent with what you think that The Rock ought to look like. We laugh at those and we can make movies about those because that incongruency is something that we get in our brain, and about our hind brain, our little lizard brain, that's a little teeny in the bottom of our brain, the base stem of our brain. We think that, well, it's easy to see that. We go, oh man, that guy's gay. There's something wrong with that guy. He's a cross dresser, because it's incongruent. Women are like, oh damn, he's so hot. I wish I could get with him. He's gay, or there's something incongruent about him. Well, it's the same thing. By order of degrees, like that's the most extreme, but by order of degrees, if you look, let's just say you don't look that way, but you still look good. You're not overweight. You're still in good shape. And you make up for those deficits by having good game, then are you alpha? Are you better? Are you on top of your game because of that? That's the thing about, and I'd be happy to talk about this with like anybody who wants to talk about it. But what I think is this, and this is just me. I think that when it comes to looks, game, and like affluence is what I call it, and I mix kind of affluence in with like money, status, pre-selection, that kind of stuff. I think that men have sort of a balance of all of those. Like you can be really super good looking and then dirt poor. You'll still get laid, but you're not going to be the same kind of man if you had more money, right? Or you have like, you're really good looking, but you're socially like just lame, right? You're autistic. There's something wrong with you. You just don't get people. Like women will be interested in you and they'll want to bang you. But then once you get there, you're like, I have social anxiety and I don't know what to do. That's incongruency. And so what most guys do is this, is they try to make up, they gross out in one way. They will go and they'll say, well, I'm going to, I don't have any money, so I'm just going to go to the gym and look as best as I can. Like, shit, that's what I did, man. Just when I was in my Hollywood metal days, I had 2 nickels to rub together. One bedroom studio apartment in North Hollywood. So I got laid like tile because I was what these women wanted. I figured things out. But from a balance perspective, I didn't have any money. I had very little game too. I just figured what worked for me. I was compensating for deficits in game and well, not so much game, but in money for sure, and then maybe game with looking good and having being in some way interesting, and it got me laid. So if that's the goal, is to get laid, then that's easy. You can make up, but guys do that all the time. And you don't have to teach anybody that. Guys do that naturally. We figure that out. Maybe not today, maybe not this generation. This generation's like, oh, I'll just stay online and just do nothing. Just jerk off. Well, so I think that there is a balance between all of those, and we tend to gross out, or we tend to try to play to whatever the strengths are that we think we have to balance our deficits. So if we have a deficit in game, we can make up for it in money, or maybe we can make up for it in looks. If we have a deficit in looks, which most guys do, they try to do it with game and they try to do it with money. Or maybe they just go, screw it, I'm just going to go live in the gym. And that's another way. Just bring that up. How do I increase my basic stats? All right, what else do I have here? Do I have anything else? I went way the hell over. I knew I would today. I'm sorry. That's why I gave you that intro in the very beginning of this. Doug Chisholm says, when a woman regularly compliments you on your bedroom skills, can that be trusted as truth? Regularly? No. Occasionally? Yeah. Let me explain one quick thing to you, Doug, as I've read articles on this and I've written about this as well. Is women fake orgasms primarily for alpha men. Does that sound weird to you? That sounds like counterintuitive, right? Why would they do that? If they're alpha men, then they must be getting their rocks off. No, the incentive is different, because women don't care enough about beta males to fake getting off with them. But they do care about a high value alpha male, and they want that alpha male because that alpha male has what they want, and they want to have maybe they want to have a better experience at a different time. Maybe they want to keep him on the hook because they want to have babies with him. Maybe he's got a lot of money. Maybe he has good game. Who knows? Like maybe for whatever reason that woman perceives him as a high value male, and I'm using alpha again in the abstract here. Women are more likely to fake orgasms for alpha males. And of course, beta male guys are like not the nice guy. Nice guys say, ha ha ha, because they look good and they're 6 foot tall and have 6-pack abs, that doesn't mean they can rock their world in bed. Ha, nice guys finish last because she finishes first. No, she's faking orgasms for him because she wants to keep him on the hook. She doesn't care enough about the beta male to do that. That's why. Davey Furtado, you are the last one, my friend. He says, after reading that statistic about girls' sexual partners before marriage, I can't get over this was from the beginning. Sorry. I can't get over the guilt of dating a girl I know I won't marry, thinking I'm ruining her. How do I get over that? Okay. You realize that you will, no matter how virtuous you are, no matter what you think your high value ethical moral conduct is, you will never, and I mean never. Why you say you should never say never? No, I mean never. You will never leave a woman better than you found her. It will never happen. Even just by the fact of you wanting to leave her better than you found, that's what will ruin it. the desire to do that. Because you'll do it and then that will screw her up. Right. So you need to understand, and I think usually in the old days, in the old pickup artist days, when there actually were pickup artists, This was a common conversation, common debate amongst PUAs was leave her better than you found her. And then other guys would be like, you can't possibly do that because just by you what is it? It's the observer effect. Observing a process changes that process. So just by you gaming that girl, you're not going to leave her better than you found her, because if she wants you and she wants to keep you on and you don't want to be around, you're not leaving her better than you found her because she's getting depressed, right? Something happened. So understand that, keep that in mind. Say, this is just simply not going to happen. And I have to be that's really pretty much an act of will for most men, is I have to be prepared to affect my will on the world, on this woman, on my job, on these things. And sometimes that's going to damage things, and sometimes it's going to better things. But you can't be afraid not to do that. And that's the end. That's the final end here. I'm not angry. Right? Who's angry? I'm not angry. Yeah. All right, guys. So that's it. Thank you guys for this very long and sticking with me, because I'm still looking at 915 people watching this. This is great. Thanks for sticking with me today. This is a kind of a very, I hope you guys got something out of this, because this is a very complex, I could go on for another like 4 hours at this, and I'm not going to. Most people don't watch these past 30 minutes. And the hard part about talking about what I talk about is that there's no elevator pitch. There's no way to make this just like, here's three ways that you can live a better life. And this is why you suck with women. Here's the 3 ways, and change these and you'll live a great life. That I don't do radio. Well, I do radio announcer voice, but I don't do I try not to. I don't like to do 3 steps. Here's the steps. Here's the key to a better life. No, the key to a better life is you having the tools with which to build that better life. And that requires an investment on your part. That requires you to educate yourself. And I'm happy to do that. I'm glad you guys get something out of this. If you do, if you got something out of this, please support me in all of the links that are down here in the description. I take PayPal. I'll even take crypto. I'm happy to have the support, at least just for this channel, if nothing else. And then again, like I was saying before, book 4 is coming very soon. Again, I'm working my way through it. NEO, thanks. I appreciate you too, my friend. So any support is good. Thank you very much. And I hope you guys got something out of this. If you missed a part or you didn't understand a part, consider like scrubbing back the other way and like listening to it again, because like I said, there's no elevator pitch for the red pill, and anybody telling you that there is selling you something. They're trying to sell you on the idea that they have the cheat codes to life, and nobody has the cheat codes to life, man. I don't care if it's even Jordan Peterson, 12 rules for life is not going to guarantee you a better life. You have to be able to employ those things and use those tools. All I'm giving you is tools. So take those tools, build a better life, and then you know what? Show me what you built. Show me. You want to show me some real good appreciation? Hit me back and say, here's how you saved me. Here's how these tools worked for me. Here's how I improved my life and I built myself into something better because I had these tools. So, and then another thing is, because you learn this and because you got these tools, it will pay off. It will, honest to God, it will pay off, and it will pay off better than if somebody gave you the cheat codes. Than if somebody said, "Oh, here you're now a black belt. Go out there and spar. You're only a white belt. Go out there and spar." I'm not going to do that to you. I don't want that to happen. It takes time. Mastery takes time. I'll leave you guys with this. What did you say? How can you shame men for being what they are, feminine, when they are only operating the way they have been taught their whole lives? I'm not shaming men. I've never shamed men. Don't throw bullshit at me, okay? Don't be shaming anybody. If you think that I'm shaming you, here's the thing. Here's what you should do. Go and look on my site. I have an essay there, and it's called "Don't Hate the Beta." Read that, and then come back to me in the comments and tell me I'm still shaming you. There you go. Thanks, Elise Steele. Much appreciated. So anyways, that's it for today, guys. Again, remember, this stuff takes time. Mastery takes time, and I'm going to leave you with the wise words of a woman who I used to do restaurant menus for. She says, "Good cooking takes time." So keep that in your head. All right. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I will have a special interview on Thursday with, what's his name? Sterling. Can't remember his last name. And that will be with Rich Cooper, hopefully if it works out for Thursday. So that'll be something to look forward to. Wednesday, regular show, regular time. I'm starting to do all my shows are now at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern. So I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Bye, guys.